Good afternoon. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. Welcome to the June 23rd, 2025 BCC meeting in the South Annex. All but one commissioner is in attendance. Commissioner Drake is not with us today. And do we have any elected officials in the audience? I don't see any. Okay. Well, let's stand for the invocation and the prayer. Gracious and loving God, we come before you with humble hearts, grateful for the opportunity to serve our community. We thank you for the gift of this day and for the people we are honored to represent. We ask for your guidance. Help us to lead with wisdom, listen with compassion, and speak with kindness. Let our decisions be thoughtful, our actions just, and our intentions pure. Bless every person in this room and bless our entire county. Help us to remember that our service is not just about policy, but about people, real lives, real needs, real hopes. Keep us mindful of the responsibility we carry and the trust placed in us. Let us work together in a spirit of respect, and may the light of understanding shine even in our differences. With thankful hearts, we ask this in you, your holy name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we would like to consider additions and deletions. Mary, would you take that, please?
Yes, ma'am. We have an update from Emergency Operations Director Jeff Goldberg on the state budget and the implications that has on local disaster operations.
Motion to approve.
We have.
Do we have another?
We have
another
one
addition?
more.
I jumped the
Yes.
gun.
Commissioners, we've got one more add-on that will be under my name, and this is just a request for approval of a pay increase for the interim county administrator. That's something that when Brian was appointed, the board did not discuss, so I wanted to bring that back before you.
Motion to approve the agenda with the additions.
And I believe we may have one more as well. My apology for Mr. Adkis, and it's related to the ADU and short-term rental ordinance amendment. He's brought something back for y'all to review on that. He'll discuss it further, I think maybe public hearing. He may
Public
change
hearing.
that when he gets up here, but he'd like for that to be added too.
Okay.
We'll include that as well in the motion.
We have a motion and a second?
Yes.
We have a motion and a second to include 3 additions. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you very much. Public comments. If you're not going to be able to be here and you'd like to speak to an item that's on the agenda, please feel free to come up now. Seeing none? Okay. Is there anyone that would like to remove anything from the consent agenda for further discussion? Seeing none?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, that will take us to
Emergency management.
Mary King, our citizens request. We don't have
We
any
don't have any,
citizens
so that
requests.
would be
Okay.
Jeff Goldberg with his update.
Good afternoon. Jeff Goldberg, Emergency Management Director, for the record.
Donna Free, Deputy Director.
Hello.
So in the agenda packet, I put as much information as possible. So for the past couple of years, the state of Florida has been funding what they've been calling the State WebEOC Initiative. WebEOC is our program that we use to manage incidents. We use it for day-to-day operations. It ties towards FEMA reimbursement and documentation and things like that. So but for the past 2 years, the state's been funding it. Before that, we were being funded with domestic security, Homeland Security funding. So when the state took that over, the Homeland Security funding went away for this project because once it's funded with a non-federal grant source or non-federal source, you can never go back to a federal grant source for it. So it was not approved in the legislature this year. So they took it out for all 67 counties. In addition, they've also taken out a program called Division of Emergency Management Enterprise System, and that is the system that the state uses to manage the grants. We do our grant reporting, our grant tracking, everything else through that. Before that, we used emails, paper pen, things like that. That was one of the other programs that was taken out of the state budget. So we had a meeting for a regional emergency management meeting last week. Donna was in attendance, and she can give you a quick update on that because Director Kevin Guthrie was there from the state emergency management with an ask for our elected officials.
So, basically Kevin Guthrie.
Donna, would you state your name
Oh,
for her,
sorry,
please?
Donna Free, Free. The state director, Kevin Guthrie, he's doing everything he can to find the money to pay for this year coming up. He is asking us all, the emergency management directors and our elected officials, to contact our legislators, to ask them to allow him to access the disaster fund, the disaster trust fund, so that he could pay for these programs out of that for this fiscal year coming up, and with the hopes that the legislature will continue to pay for it in the future. So he is asking that you, as a group of elected officials for the county, contact either by letter, email, or call the senator and representative for our county.
Okay,
Madam Chair.
certainly.
Mr. Goldberg, are you prepared to draft that letter?
I'm in the process of drafting it. I should have it done this afternoon. I was getting a few points to it. One of the issues that we're running into now, realistically, we think this is going to be a Hail Mary. We don't believe we're going to be able to get funding for it. The funding ends July 1, which means after July 1, we either lose WebEOC and DEMIS. DEMIS is a state thing, so that's not anything where local funds would be involved in. But if we lose WebEOC from the state funding standpoint, we would have to fund it ourselves if we so choose. It's imperative that we have this system. So what I'm working with Juvari, which is the company that runs WebEOC, we're going to look at doing a 3-month subscription from July 1 to September 30 at a prorated rate of just under $9,000. And then from October 1 to September 30, because I like to do my subscriptions on a fiscal year basis. That way, money comes in a new fiscal year, money goes out, it's all taken care of for about $33,000. Now, I was able to negotiate a better price, so that normally is about $45,000 to $50,000. So we were able to get it actually cheaper than what some of the other counties are. So this letter would not only benefit us, but the other rural counties, as well as the 29 fiscally constrained counties that we don't know what they're going to do. But in looking for it, we want to see what we can do here and funding that for the 3 months of this last fiscal year. And then I've been working with Ms. Thomason to put it in my budget request for next year as well, providing it doesn't get funded. And even if they do decide to do that, there's a budget amendment that needs to be done and all types of stuff on the state level, which is still going to prolong the timeframe on this.
Okay,
Right.
okay, sounds
I'm-
good, very
I
thorough.
make a motion, we approve and authorize the chair to sign a letter on behalf of the BCC to Representative Abbott and Senator Trumbull urging funding of this program, and that Mr. Goldberg will be responsible for drafting the letter.
I'll second that, but can we add, because he's not looking very positive with that action, and he's asking for 9,000,
Yes, sir.
can we add to that motion with that, or it has to be separate?
That's a,
Commissioner, we really, if the board would just kind of give us informal direction to do this, we can go ahead and do a budget transfer on our side. It's all general funds.
Okay.
Mhm.
So
So
do
we
we
don't
need a motion or not?
We do not need a motion as long as that's understood, as that's what she's gonna be doing.
Okay.
This is
Sounds
just to
good to
tie
me.
you over until whatever, and then
Yes,
we,
sir.
then we put in a budget one way or the other if it gets covered or
Correct.
not.
Yeah, I'm planning for it in the budget. If at the last minute, toward the end of the budget cycle, we get a yes that they're going to pay for it, we'll just take that funding out of the budget.
Good.
So we just need a motion on the letter, but not the funding.
Oh, okay.
so we got that.
So second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Anyone in the audience like to speak to this? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
I appreciate it. Thank you for the support.
Thank you. Okay, let's see.
Okay, so that brings us to Human Resources.
Okay.
We have a representative from the Garing Group to present a presentation on self-funded insurance.
Good morning, afternoon, sorry.
Yeah, good afternoon, Commissioners. Terry Franksville with Human Resources, and I'd like to introduce the Garing Group. They're going to talk about the city's option of going self-insurance, self-funding for our insurance. As I mentioned to you before, Sean Fleming, who was part of the group, still dealing with some personal related issues, so they're going to speak on his behalf. I get Anne Marie Studley and Josh Rupp, and I'll let them take it, and I'll follow up afterwards.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairwoman, Vice Chairman, and Commissioners. My name is Anna Maria Studley. I'm the National Director of Client Development for all government and public sector for our agency. So we're going to start with just a real high overview. I know there's been a lot with the committee and the staff for years looking at these options. Overview, we're going to do a little bit of background and history. Medical request for proposal that went out, extensive process last year, and then fully insured versus self-funded options. Just the history of your medical programs with your pharmacy, you'll see that there's a lot of fluctuation. This happens typically under a fully insured type funding, so it will go up and down and be very reactive, and it is what happens in the industry. There are times that you're going to have a good year, and then you're going to have a bad year, or you'll have 2 good years, and so on. So if you look at the overall between over the last 6 years and the average from 2016 to 2024, you still are at 5.1, outperforming medical inflation in your region and area. So that is a positive sign, and that's one of the things that we look at when we start thinking about self-funded. The background on the plan offerings, you still and have offered the same 3 plan offerings to your employees and retirees for quite some time. The major difference between the first column and the second, they look very much the same. One has pharmacy coverage and one does not, and that is a grandfathered plan. And then you have the blue options 3360. So from a variety of out-of-pocket when they use the plan and through payroll deductions, they have choices. What happened last year with the process, with staff and the committee and all of you, there was a formal request for proposal and vetting out. It was issued for the October 1, 24 through September 30th, 25 year. We asked for all types of funding, and in your region, the majority of the carriers that offer, they don't offer a lot of the hybrid, but they do offer both fully insured and self-funded, with the fully insured having bells and whistles. Florida Blue came to the table at the end of the day with a zero increase, or what we call a flat. So the premium stayed the same, your payroll deductions, your plan stayed the same, and you had an eligibility for what is called a pro-share agreement, which is all the good, none of the bad. If your claims go bad, then you can walk away with just your premium paid. If it is good, you get a 50% of what the proceeds or the surplus would be. They matched the current schedule of benefits. Again, no changes, no disruption. And United Healthcare came in with a negative 2.7%. There were some reductions that would have impacted your team and your staff. If we had made that change, also there's disruption of providers and networks and so forth. So it was elected, it was recommended by the committee and staff, and it was brought in front of you, and everybody agreed. For that differential, it wasn't worth the move. Let's stay where we are with blues. But we also did a little bit of education, and we're going to bring it to you too. And we said, okay, how do we prepare? Because ultimately, the way you're running, it is looking like this could be a good option to move from the carrier insuring all the risk to you taking partial risk and then have the bigger reward. So you'll see there's available funding options at the top. Fully insured is the safest. Guaranteed premium, you pay it for the year, whether you do good or bad, that's all you pay. And so hence the pro share. We wanted you to have some of the good if you did good. Unfortunately, that formula did not reap any benefits, but it was there if you did good, because it was one of the years we did not do good on the claims. Partially self-funded is hybrid. This is a quasi-funding. It's on fully insured paper, but it looks a little bit in the back end like self-funding. And again, as what I said with your pro share, it would fall in here where if you did well and did better than the underwriter calculated, you would share in that. Self-insured is where you assume any and all of the risk. Additional protection is purchased through reinsurance, or what we call stop loss. Healthcare claims are processed by a third-party administrator. The really neat thing about this, it would be Florida Blue, same network, same processing, same plans. And because you're a government entity, there is an actuarial certification for surplus funds that will need to be done at the completion of every plan year. So, and we'll get into the surplus funds. You'll see that there's more and more risk as you go down, but we know you're a government entity, so we always have to prepare for worst-case scenario. What are the benefits? There's a lot on both sides of the house, but mostly on self-funding. Some of the key ones that are important is that you can use in your good years, you can build surpluses and use it as a stabilization, so that in the bad years, it's not doing the reactive fluctuation. So you build that reserve and you buy off the bad years with the money that you've held from the good years. So we're not being reactive with your budget and with benefits and payroll deductions. There's a lot of flexibility in the plan design. You're only governed by mostly federal mandates, not state. So it allows a lot of really innovative, very cost-effective, and actually better, more attentive care to your members, such as on-site or near-site health clinics with dedicated medical staff, pharmacy, wellness, disease management carve-out, and you get pharmacy rebates back. And that is something, as you see, as legislators, always in the marketplace. When you're fully insured, the insurance company gets all the pharmacy benefits and rebates back. And so hence all the transparency that we're trying to have. You're not subject to state premium taxes. And there, back then it was more important, but ACA, we weren't subject to some of that legislation. And there is no impact, just like last year. Same plans, same doctors, same Blue Cross that they're familiar with, so there's no disruption. On the other side, the drawbacks, as I said, that you do assume some of the risk. That's why we put the stop loss in the back end for any one large claim or an accumulation of claims that are under that threshold, so you know your worst case scenario. If it's not delegated to your third-party administrator, then you take the final fiduciary responsibility. Again, the actuarial filing based on Florida Statute 11208. And if the reinsurance is not integrated with your third-party administrator, there could be where you put the money out for the claim and then you have to wait for reimbursement. But that's not going to happen in what's being recommended. It's all with the Blues. Final appeals go to the plan decision maker, who's the final fiduciary. Components. The key components of any program, let alone a self-funded, is you have administrative costs, which is where you outsource it to a third-party administrator to process claims, rent the network. That's about 3 to 5% of the overall cost, believe it or not, of your whole healthcare plan. Reinsurance is the back end where we buy protections for those large claims. So you could have $1 million claim, you want to cut it off at a certain place where you know that that protection for funding is built into your budget and your program. That'll range anywhere from 8 to 14%, depending on where we put that stop loss gap. And then the majority, 80 to 90% of the claims for a group your size will fall into the major driver of what healthcare costs are year over year. Wrong button. If we look from 2019, believe it or not, this is where historical trends, that's where we see the up and down. If you had been self-funded since 2019, even with the peaks and the valleys, from there through the end of 2024 fiscal and plan year, you would have had a surplus of 9.4, almost 9.5 million accumulated. So again, it's not a pointing of a finger, it's timing, it's risk, it's having the surplus funds. Remember, through here, you went through COVID. I mean, we've been through ACA. So just doing a look back, we like to see where that would be. Now, on the fully insured in 2018 to 2022, because of COVID and the dip in claims, you did have a pro share of just shy of $1 million, so you can take that out of there. But again, nobody has a crystal ball. So we like to see a lot of years conclusion before we move forward. Based on the claims experience, self-funding over the past 5 years, as I said, would have netted about an 11.7% savings overall, 9.4 million. The reserves are estimated on a go-forward basis for this year, October 1 renewal to September 30th of next year, to be 3.2 million. The reserves, I think we were at 2.8, 2.9, right, Melissa, last year? The county has the potential of reducing increased variability and control long-term by building these reserves and then using it to enhance your program or to buy off when you peak. Renewal options in front of us for October 1. The first offer for the fully insured renewal was 17.1%. We immediately said no way. The team did, Sean and the team Josh did a wonderful job renewing as is and renegotiating that down to a 9.1% increase with no change in the benefits. If the plan runs a surplus, the county would be eligible to receive a pro share, which you're in the second year of that. And we did negotiate when you brought us on board to take that from a 50% to 100%. Where the maximum cost with that renewal negotiation is $22,439,000 and change. Self-funded, if you transition to self-funded with the same benefits and the same networks, no change, again, to the benefit structure for your members. And you fund it at a 3% increase, which is our funding recommendation. The reserves are already set aside from last year, thank you, 2.9 million. Then you will see that the maximum cost, worst case scenario, is $22,189,000 and change. So the worst case scenario under self-funded, where you can, if you do better and come in at expected, build a reserve, is still less than your fully insured renewal. Okay, there is an appendix in the back just with some of the assumptions. Real quick, your fully insured program in the back end for the carrier has what's called pooling for those large claims. They actually build it in the back end of their own programs. That was $250, so that's what we're recommending in your stop loss, so that it's apples to apples, because that's what all this financial assessment has been based on. So with that, I'll go backwards and say if there's any questions.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Yes, thank you for the update, and you made it about as plain as could be made for non-insurance people, so I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I'll be honest with you, I was one that had a lot of doubt about this. I think it's my personality and probably a lot of the personality of people in this room. Change scares us, you know. But I've looked through it, I've talked to Terry, I've done the research, and I hate to admit I'm wrong, but I think this is the way we go. I really do. I was, and Terry will tell you, I was curious, and my mind was leaning towards we probably need to stay where we are, but I think after hearing you and Terry and David. I think that we need to do this, so I'll be voting yes on this.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Well, I've often suspected we would do better self than fully, the full option, but it's in black and white. It's a 9.1 percent increase if we go with the full package, and it's, what, 3.1? I mean, that's a substantial savings, and the best thing about it is the employees will never know anything because they'll have the same, it'll all be Blue Cross, and they'll have the same package we've had for probably 20 years. So, I mean, it's a win-win. There's no drawback to it.
It's kind of
And
like
I'll
the
also be
perfect
voting
storm
yes.
in a good way.
Right, right.
And I
Go
use
ahead.
that term very positively as we're in the beginning of hurricane
Right.
season.
Don't mention that.
I know. Oh,
What would be the process, let's just say, speaking on the devil's advocate here, half of what you say on here doesn't come to fruition. What do we do to get back to where we were prior to this? Is it a long step process? Is it just a flip of
No.
a switch? What is it?
No, it's just disclosing any financials for run-out claims and buying yourself back into a fully insured arrangement. We do it all the time. It
Alright.
depends on how the claims are. If they start getting ugly and not out of character for a number of years, then sometimes you can get it fully insured.
I didn't like what you just said. We do that all the time. Why
No,
would
no,
you-
no, 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 not all the time. Hey, I was a cost accountant for Siemens. I got into it because of the analytics of
thought
the
the same
data
thing.
and the self-funded.
Okay.
You do have the perfect storm, and I know you've been kind of looking at this for years. I'm in the business for 46 years, so there are times where you go back to fully insured. But most of the time, well, pretty much all the time, you want to build it and stay with it. It's kind of like a retirement investment account. You're going to have your dips, you're going to have your pluses, and you just ride the storm. It really does. It stabilizes the reactions that you have to make with your staff every year. If it's a good year, we do the happy dance, and if it's a bad year, we're worrying about budget. So it helps. We have quite a number of government entities, especially counties your size, that they all have moved over the years pretty much to self-funded.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask the what if. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
All right.
Well, I feel the same way as Commissioner Anderson. At first, I was totally against it, but the more I learned about it, and I have talked to other people that do have it, and I think that it's a good way to move forward, to give us potential of saving money, and also the fact that people can continue to see the same providers. I think that was one of the things I thought was really important, that we didn't disrupt that. So I think it's a good plan, and I think it's certainly worth trying. So thank you very much. I appreciate your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Not to mention the fact we give away $9 million over the last 5 years.
Yeah. Well, nobody has a crystal ball.
Right.
You know, and like I said, there are times where everybody wants to do it, and you have financial or circumstances out of your control in other areas, so you're not able to do that.
So when do,
Thank you.
Melissa, I guess this is your question, when do we need to vote?
The next
The
one-
next item.
The next item, 13. Terry will come
We're
back
not
up, I
messing
believe.
around, we're going right back.
Well, I'll just go ahead, I'll make a motion that we approve and give you the authority to move forward with Mr. Fraxman.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to move forward with the self-funding. Would anyone from the audience like to speak to this? Seeing none, any comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now we're at the TDC, and I believe, Matt, if you would come forward. By the way, thank you for that presentation.
Man, it's always tough to follow insurance, man. Good afternoon, Chair, Commissioners, Matt Algerin, Walton County Tourism. Happy to be here today. Just wanted to come back to the meeting. The last time we had talked about the PGA was May 27th, when you all heard from Charles Hamrick and the team there. And at that point, you all had given us direction to continue those conversations and dialogue, and then to come back at this meeting with an update. So since we met May 27th, the TDC Council met and we talked about the PGA some more, and they ultimately voted 7-1 to decline moving forward with the tournament, essentially not including that as part of our TDC plan moving forward. So wanted to, A, provide you all that update based on that TDC motion, and then just see what direction, if any, you all may have for us to move forward.
Madam Chair. Mr. Adkisson, I understand that the action of the TDC Council would require us to have a 4-1 vote. Is that accurate?
Absolutely, because this is a multi-year and substantial financial commitment. This is not just a general action item from the TDC or general recommendation. Because it would be a part of the overall tourist development plan, we would have to put in for, budget, and allocate for. This is an actual plan amendment, so under Florida statute, the plan cannot be substantially amended except by an affirmative vote of a majority plus one of you if the TDC has not included or otherwise agreed to do it. So it would be a 4-1 if the board wishes to change course at this point in time and include it in the Tourist Development Council plan.
So, since there's only 4 of us here, could we,
Majority plus one additional.
so it's still a 4 vote?
It's still a
Yeah,
vote.
because a majority today is 3.
Right, right.
So, could we just, since we only have 4 here, could we, we don't even have a contract, so could we just continue this and allow Mr. Algren to at least bring us back an idea of a contract? And
That's to the board's discretion. I certainly don't think this board, even if you had all 5 here, would be in a position to vote if you don't have a contract in front of you.
I agree with that.
I would like to ask that, that you, Mr. Atkinson, and maybe a member of the TDC board, whoever you choose, get together and talk to the PGA folks and see if you can come up with a contract that would be amicable for everyone. I'd hate to just stop this at this point.
Go ahead.
Could we add Commissioner Drake to that? I think we need to have a board member.
We did say a board member of the TDC.
No, I think we need a board member of this board.
Oh, of this
He
board,
would
of
kill
this
2
board.
birds with 1 stone.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I just think we need to have a say on this, and
I'd be glad
I
to.
did hear, granted, it was through the grapevine, but I did hear that the PGA is willing to consider a 3-year deal. And I think, Mr. Curry, you said that would really help you in your decision. So,
Yeah, I just wanted to say one thing on
I
that.
think we need to, I think we got some negotiating to do, but I think we need a board member also.
Okay,
I would,
I'll repeat
I
that.
would,
Looks like his mic's on and maybe turned down a little bit if we can look at that.
before the discussion, I'll make a motion, we continue this until they can have a chance to negotiate, and I would include Commissioner Drake, Mr. Atkiss, and Mr. Algren as the committee to negotiate with them. And if y'all can bring something back, so be it, if you can't. But that's the motion, to continue until we have a contract.
Okay,
I'll second that.
we have a motion, second, go ahead.
Okay. Kind of like and thank you, Commissioner Anderson, I did say we got to start somewhere. I keep hearing this word compromise, but I have yet heard anything back from their side with anything to compromise with. If that's true what Commissioner Anderson said, that's great, but how long have we been on this, and we haven't heard one thing from the other side on the negotiation aspect of this. They haven't brought back anything to us to even vote on or consider. or even discuss. I mean, we can't even discuss nothing right now because they haven't given us anything to discuss about.
We did request, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to
No,
interrupt,
but I'm just,
Commissioner.
you know, I like Commissioner Gladwell's thing, you know, somebody needs to sit down at the table and see what we're gonna do with this. I mean, we're gonna kick this can down the road, either past the point of no return, or we're gonna roll with it. We have to have someone from their side compromising on our side. I mean, I want some skin in the game from other than our empty checkbook or our checkbook. I mean, somebody's gonna benefit more than anybody else in this thing, and I think those folks need to come to the table. If they don't come to the table, even though there's a 3-year thing, I mean, I don't know. I'm still on the fence on it. I mean, I got to see something from the other side. That's my only point. Thank you, Commissioner Gladwell, for motioning that.
Well, one of the things that any course that were to be taking this over would not be having the public come and pay to pay off for probably 2 weeks. Their course would be closed down for that purpose. So that would be some, that would, okay, so that would be skin in the game.
Yeah, and
So-
they're gonna have to do a lot of, redoing the golf or upgrades, making it tougher, making it, you know, more pro playable, cause there's
Right.
a big difference between Tony playing it and the pros
Right.
playing it.
And that's what I want to see on paper. I mean, we
Yeah,
can sit
and-
up here
and
and
that's-
discuss it all day long, but until it's on paper, it's meaningless to me.
Well, I think they did do a really nice presentation when they came before us before, and they did give us what the requirements were. And I think this is a very prestigious event, and I think that we would be remiss in just not really looking at this with really closely and making sure that we can make, both sides happy. But I would also like to add that in addition to Commissioner Drake and yourself, Matt, and Mr. Atkinson, that we also include a bed tax collector on that committee or that group to talk to the PGA and come up with something. And that would be someone of your choosing, whoever wants to do that as a bed tax collector. And just find out, all the answers you can and bring them back to us. I've not hidden the fact that I just think it's a phenomenal idea and a great opportunity. And my hope is that you bring back, something that we're all willing to agree on. But anyway,
Would Amy Coble be acceptable to you?
So what I would ask is this, and I have no problem with Amy. What I would say, though, is if we would just simply say a bed tax collector, if you're fine amending your motion, what I want to be careful about is Commissioner Drake is on the TDC council. She's on the TDC council. I think we might be getting very close to a sunshine question.
Right.
So just say a bed tax collector and let us identify it, and I think we can make that happen.
I'll amend the motion to that.
okay? And we have a second?
I'll
We have a motion and a second. Would anyone in the audience like to speak to this? Yes, Tabitha?
Hi, Tabitha Howard, Howard. Actually, we have someone from the TDC that is for Sandestin that's on the bed tax. Robert, I don't know his last, Robert, he's seat 9. Is it Lacasse?
Yes,
I don't
Mr.
know.
Lacasse.
Yeah, he's here in the audience right now. And so is Rick. Rick or Rich, I don't know. He spoke at my SOA board meeting about this information. So we've got 2 people present from Sandestin right now that are advocates for it and are actually negotiating the deal. So maybe they can come up and have something to say about it.
Well,
possibly.
it'll be a team of people that we just identified that would be involved.
Oh, okay. Well,
Okay.
like I said, he's seat 9 for Sandestin, and he's on the TDC board.
Okay.
And he's here.
Thank you.
I wouldn't
Okay.
wanna force
We have a
anybody to
motion and a
talk.
second. Mr. Bagby?
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. I spoke the same points, or a couple of these points, to the TDC before they voted to include Commissioner Drake against this proposal. The first thing y'all need to ask yourselves is, where's your portion of that money coming from? And everybody says the TDC. Well, it's not coming out of the beach nourishment penny. We already know that. So it would probably come out from the new product. So you would have $1 million a year for 4 years, or $1 million a year for 3 years, or maybe $2 million for 3 years, depending on how much money's left over in the reserves there. The vote was already meant, my issue is to make sure to protect the beach nourishment money, because obviously I'm invested in that idea very strongly. But I just don't see the juice being worth the squeeze. It is a great idea, but we had a Corn Ferry Tour event here, it didn't make it. We had a senior PGA Tour event here, it didn't make it. So some reason we think that if we bring the PGA Tour here, it'll make it. So I went and did a little research on September and October, after the FedEx Cup Championship, who plays, who wins. So here's the top 5, because the 2 tournaments that have been mentioned that we would replace Las Vegas and then the one in September. There was only one in September last year. That was at Napa. We all love wine here too, but here is the money list, and this includes the winnings in these 2 tournaments, where they finished the year. The winner was 88th on the money list. Second place was 104, 87, 121, and 114. And that was at the Napa tournament in September. In October, the Las Vegas tournament, we did a little bit better because, Vegas is a pretty good draw. The 19th highest money winner on the tour last year actually won that event, followed in second place by the 77th ranked, the 94th ranked, the 101st ranked, and the 106th ranked. So this idea that we're going to get all these great golfers here, and I mean, we're going to get some good golfers, they're professionals, but we're not going to get, Scotty or Tiger or, anybody like that. We're going to get probably 70 and below, and maybe somebody that has a place here who's 19th on the money list. So I would just ask you to identify, make sure your committee identifies a recommendation of where that money could come from or where it should come from, and also what's the cost share? Because asking you or asking the county, the citizens of the county to fund this just so somebody, anybody, can, even all the bed tax collectors, even though I don't think all of them will benefit, so you can have 70 folks here for a year or 2 or 3, the top 70 and above golfers, isn't the best use of that money. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, go ahead. Matt, he wants to ask you a question.
Can I ask you a question, Matt?
You can come on forward.
Certainly, yes, sir.
I'll be quick. The money that we're down this year, do you have a running total so far?
Down about 4.65% through April.
What does that equal in funding, money? Millions?
A few millions, yeah.
So I just want to make sure that we keep that in perspective from what Mr. Bagby just said, that if we do this, then we only have $1 million a year for the next 3 years or 5 years, whatever it is, to get everybody that doesn't play golf to come here to the beaches. We need to keep that in consideration, because if you're going to cut yourself short on advertising and marketing to get everyone other than golf to get here, $1 million is $1 million. That's all you can do. I mean, when you're used to what? What's the number every year? 6, 5?
4.
4?
So I'm sorry,
So-
number for which? What was the
For
question?
marketing.
Yeah, about 8.
So that's a substantial cut in pay in your marketing department. So, I mean, I would just suggest that we keep that in, because I don't see anything going up to where the numbers are going to be going up. I mean, we continually are going down every month. So please keep that in consideration.
Certainly.
I'd like to say that, don't forget about COVID. COVID did have an effect on us, and we had some kind of foreign numbers that were there for a while because of it, and it's kind of gradually gotten back to where it was pre-COVID. So it's not as drastic as it may seem. And also, don't forget about the return on investment. This is not money that's going to go out the door and not come back. There will be money coming back. And in addition, it will be benefiting the servers, the restaurants, the hotels. It'll, in my opinion, it will also service the artists, A lot of the restaurants that are on the north end and Freeport, everybody will benefit from this. It's not going to be isolated. It's for the entire county. And according to our strategic plan, it states on there that we need to be looking for something in the shoulder season, which this is, that encompasses the entire county, which this does. So that's my 2 cents. Money will be coming back. I mean, this is a time where the servers will get good tips, I would assume. And there's going to, it's just, I just wish people would realize that it's not just money going out, it's also money coming back. So, thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Madam
And
Chair.
you, yes,
Just, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but just to echo that when we were, the years right directly prior to COVID, we were running about $30 million in receipts on the TDC, which had been growing steadily, but that's about where we were. We went from 30 to 60 in like a year because of COVID, because we were the only thing open. We were the only show in town. Well, everyone, I mean, we were warned, and everyone expected that when COVID ended, that would go back to around 33 or so, and instead it stayed up in the 50s. Now, that's good, but going around wringing your hands saying that the sky is falling is not accurate, because the sky so far has not fallen. We're nowhere near where we started before COVID. Now, the question about this is, and what would cause me to be against it, if any hint that we're going to use renourishment money is not going to work.
Legally,
I will
we are
not be
not
in
permitted
favor
to
of
at this point in time.
So our original suggestion when we were exploring this and looking for, funding opportunities was the shoulder season reserves, understanding that we had about $22 million in that shoulder season reserve bucket. So that was where we had originally identified, the possible funding. During those conversations with the council, they had indicated that they did not have a desire to pool funds out of reserves to fund this.
but there's shoulder season reserves?
Yes.
Okay,
Well,
Madam Chair,
yes.
Matt, you have said in the past that you've contacted a lot of local businesses. Could you get me a list of the people you contacted?
Certainly.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Young lady, would you like to come on up? Thank you for waiting.
You got one in the back.
May I move this?
Yes.
Thank you. Megan Fiedler for the record, please. Megan Fiedler. Let me know if you need me to spell
Will you
last
spell
name.
that last
Yeah,
name for
last
me?
name spelled F-I-E-D-L-E-R.
Thank you.
Thank you. So what I wanted to talk about is kind of the group of people who I feel like haven't been mentioned a lot in this situation, which you just mentioned, which I appreciate, is the employees, and especially the hourly employees. So I am actually an hourly employee, and due to the nature of my position, I've seen what happens when we hit that off season and we hit the September, October, and people go from full-time to part-time to sometimes less time, because they're not able to get those hours because we run out of business, and there's not as much stuff happening. And what I heard in the TDC meeting was that there's an opportunity to bring something in that could bring in those hours that could help people, for 1 more month or 2 more months to be able to pay for car payments, or, go do stuff visit family, or go do stuff that they wouldn't have been able to do because they're saving all of this money. And I feel like bringing in PGA, this big brand that could bring in all of that time, those hours for those employees, that would help us in so many ways, is something that I would hope that the board is able to vote in favor of and allow to happen, so that, many of the employees that are hourly can continue building those funds, building time, more hours that they can work to build more money for when we do hit, December, January, February, and it's very, very low.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
would you mind sharing with us which part of the industry you're involved in? Like, are you involved in the hotels, the restaurants, or something else? But
Absolutely. So I'm in hospitality. I'm in, I would say, hotels.
okay. And you think this will help y'all?
I think so, because you see when less people coming into the front desk, and there's nobody there for check-in times, or there's very few people, and you don't see the ability for that many people coming in and having the opportunity for there to be more people, seeing, you know, because I do know servers as well. I know people who are in those other industries, and I see them struggling or having to get 3 to 4 jobs because they don't make as much money as they could, or they just have a little bit more funding would be enough.
I have to admit, helping you and people like you, it would get me a lot closer to voting for this, because I've sort of been hesitant because of the amount of money, but I certainly want to help our rank and file, so to speak. So
I appreciate that.
I appreciate you coming today, and I appreciate you sharing your opinion.
You're welcome.
I do too. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Madam Chair, while he's coming up.
Yes.
I just want to make sure that we're in-depth in our negotiations and not just get our checkbook out. You know, I'm not for or against it right now, but I think there needs to be a little bit more effort on the table from both sides to see where we're at, and it's not all one-sided. So that's my 2 cents.
That's what we're asking for. Yeah. Okay, come on up.
Thank you. Dan Miles, Walton County resident, taxpayer, and I work in the hospitality industry. Passionate about seeing the PGA Tour come to our area for a number of reasons. Like Miss Megan was mentioning, being in the hospitality industry, I see my friends and family get their hours cut or, you know, laid off in the fall. I understand that the bed tax collection, you know, those monies are reserved for shoulder season enhancements. And so the PGA coming and helping my friends and family stay in their job a little bit longer certainly is very meaningful to me. I also mostly have contact directly in my day-to-day work with local homeowners, property owners. And a weird thing happened earlier this year where, as I'm meeting with people, grabbing myself, getting ready to go, homeowners started to say, "Hey, what's this I hear about PGA coming here? Is that really happening?" I'm like, "Oh, well, didn't know that you know, there was a word out on the street about that, but it's something that the county is looking at, and so please do what you can to help make that happen." From what I can tell, you know, it's being talked about here at this level, and there's a couple articles, so I think I would have heard about it more if we had more people reading our local newspapers and things like that. But the number of homeowners who have expressed enthusiasm has been surprising. And I also found a Facebook post where somebody mentioned this is on the docket and being discussed. And I was very surprised by the positive comments. One person said, "That would be awesome for the businesses in the community." Another person said, "It would be fun. Champions Tour was great." So, I mean, a lot of times when I've had big announcements, I can't get publicity that good or a reaction that good. So just, you know, on behalf of friends and family who also work in the industry, but also on behalf of the homeowners that I'm dealing with, everyone is very excited about the PGA possibly coming here, and I appreciate everything y'all are doing to help move it forward. Oh, and while I'm still here, I do believe that while the bed tax collection is down, in April it was up 11% increase year over year. And the email I get about those monthly collections and what it means also outlines, like I was saying, you know, it's intended uses in that shoulder season enhancement that we're very much looking forward to.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate you.
I will say this, if traffic on Highway 83 is any indication of tourism, we're up. Because you can't hardly move on 83 on Saturday.
Yes, sir.
That's the truth.
Mhm.
Good afternoon, Rick Heilman, Hileman. I just want to point out a couple things that are kind of important to note. I think we've made a lot of progress, and I appreciate the in-depth consideration of this event. But the talking has drug on just a little bit. To use Mr. Drake's comparison, you don't pay full price, sticker price for a car. Well, at some point, somebody has to make a counteroffer. And I think if this committee were to go to the PGA Tour with what they would like to see, I think that starts the conversation. And I think there is a real opportunity there to negotiate the terms. Charles Hamrick stood in front of you a month ago and said that the length of the commitment was negotiable.
Right.
But there's been no follow-up with that
Right.
by the commission or the TDC to see what that looks like. And I think that time is now.
I agree. Thank you very, very much. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
I'm a little shorter, so.
That's okay. You can pull that mic down.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm April Melendez, Melendez. I've been a Walton County resident for a year now. We recently relocated last year. My son's on the autism spectrum, 7 years old. In the school districts out here, we had a lot of troubles in Orlando finding the right school. So one of the main reasons we moved here was school district and just all the family events and activities. So when seeing the presentation a few weeks back, or a month ago maybe now, what really drew to me was the kids camps and teaching them the golf. Because you got to understand, when people are traveling, even though and I'm in the hospitality industry as well, so I see a lot of that, but even if they're coming for conferences or meetings, they're bringing families, and so we're always trying to sell that experience for the families of what can they do in between that time. And I always like to think of my son and kind of relate to what we like when we go traveling places. And so that was really eye-opening to me of how cool is that we could offer that in the area, in local golf course, and have that kind of kids fun as well. And then you've got the spouses and other family members that love the beaches. To be honest, I always heard about Destin. I have a friend that owned property out here. And my husband came a few times, but it was about a 10-hour drive from when we were in Miami. So I thought, is it really worth driving 10 hours to? So now that I've been here, we came and checked it out. I mean, the beaches are insane. You know, amazing, beautiful. Again, lots of cool playgrounds and parks, lots of indoor activities to do. Because you kind of think of it, you don't realize how much there actually is. Even the rainforest, Blacklight place we went to last weekend was so cool. So lots of great restaurants, all small business owned, you know, not always just chains. So I think it would definitely bring a benefit to all those smaller family-owned businesses. There's so many cool ones out here. And then in addition to that, with the kids being able to actually be involved, because they probably watch a lot of these sports, but they don't really get that opportunity to be involved. So I think that'd be pretty neat as well. So I think it kind of caters all around. And when you're getting the advertisement, like they kind of showed that kind of mock, right. advertisement, it gave me goosebumps because it was like, you really, really don't realize how beautiful it is here. You hear the name, but you don't really know too much about it. So I think it's great to get that word out there and for people to see with their own eyes, so.
Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Yeah.
Before you go down, I'd like to, first of all, thank you for coming up here and speaking, but in all my life in Walton County, and that's about 70 years, I have never heard one person say, we moved to Walton County because of the school district. And I'd like to give praise and thanks to my friend Russell Hughes, our superintendent, and our former superintendent, Carleen Anderson, no kin to me, by the way, and for the job they've done, and the school boards that were on there. They have truly turned our education system around. And I am so proud that you came up here, and I've got tears in my eyes, just the fact that I've never heard one soul in my entire life in Walton County say, we moved to Walton County for the school district. Thank you for that.
Thank you, that means a lot, because there's a lot of challenges, as you know.
Yes.
And so it's been rough for us, but it's been really nice to have a place that we can feel welcomed and we can discuss those challenges. And even in the kindergarten, we worked with the assistant principal. You know, in other schools, we just felt like he was always a burden, so it's really nice that we have this community, and there's so many events, local autism events. So it was so nice when we first came to check out apartments, we saw it at the South Walton Academy sign, you know, the T for autism and things like that, and Sandestin has autism events. So it's, again, a place that we knew was home immediately. So I want to thank you all.
Thank you very much.
And Mr. Algren, you might want to talk to her about a commercial.
Did you want to come back up, Matt? Did you? Okay. We have a motion and a second on the floor. I want to clarify, just for my own mind, what is this board consisting of? Who is this board consisting of?
It's going to be basically TDC staff, Mr. Algren, Brad Drake, myself. Not as much of a committee because we're not going to be subject to sunshine as much as those are the people, plus a bed tax collector.
Okay. And the job is to coordinate with the PGA to determine what kind of alternatives that there may be for us to move forward.
And bring something back
And bring
to the
something back.
TDC council as well as this board.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you very, very much. Appreciate it, and appreciate all the comments from you all. Okay, Mr. Atkinson.
I believe Melissa has an add-on in front of
Melissa,
me.
that's right.
Commissioners, we would like to request approval of a pay increase for the interim county administrator. And to give you a reference, a 50% increase does put Mr. Kellenberger's salary in line with that of the previous county administrator. And while we were on this topic, I also want to mention, as you know, Mr. Kellenberger is paid out of tourism funds. So what we would do is the time that he is spending currently on tourism items, we would apply that percentage of his time to his original salary. And anything over that would be paid by general fund. So none of this would be absorbed by tourism.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments from the board? Any comments from the audience? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before I open the public hearing, I do want us to go back to one item. Mr. McKee let me know that under his item on the consent agenda, we've been going back and forth with Waste Management, and we actually do have an agreement with Waste Management. It is not on your agenda. So, Madam Clerk, if you will note for the record that as to consent item 6, it indicates board approval of the consent agenda. That item was not, there was no document to approve. That'll be at your next meeting. But everything is moving forward, everything's fine, and we do have a agreement in terms. So there was nothing there, so I just don't want there to be a confusion about did we or did we not approve anything. There actually was not an attachment. That should have been pulled off. Mr. McKee let me know afterwards. So I told Billy I would take the tomatoes being thrown at me if y'all are aggravated for that.
No, that's perfectly fine.
I will say, the sooner we can get those, the people in the north end a second can.
My understanding
The better
is
we'll
they
we'll
will
be.
work with us now based on our agreement. They understand that this is a pro forma execution after the fact. So if they need them, tell them to start reaching out. We'll work with them.
And we need to get the people who pay for one reimbursed.
Absolutely. We will get on that. So I need a motion to open a public hearing.
Motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Public hearing is open.
All right, so circulated before you is the draft you've previously seen with a couple of comments made to it. We have indicated that after speaking to several board members in terms of qualifications under page 2:11, it indicates that the requirements for the position of county administrator will be that which is part of a published job description and a resolution of the Board of County Commissioners if one is so adopted. The discussions that I've had, and I'll welcome any commissioners because I know there's been some, I wouldn't say there's consensus on this one way or the other, but because there was not consensus as to what the minimum qualifications are, that was something that flexibility was sought for. So the way to do it is to say that you'll set the qualifications when you post the job, rather than say, needs a master's, needs a bachelor's, this is preference, this isn't. That gives you the most flexibility. I did put back in there that the county administrator is to be a resident of Walton County during his tenure, but that gives him 90 days to move in. In all fairness, we can adjust the date, the amount of time he has to move in. I know some people said 6. I think everybody told me 12 was too long, which is what other counties have. But I think 90 tended to be the most consistent with what I've seen. 30 was the next most common, if I were to break them down. I did under 212 follow the general recommendation from the ICMA and Florida's recommendation under Florida's similar board, as well as the Florida League of Cities and Association of Counties, in discussing these matters, that for charter counties and for counties that adopt an ordinance outside of the County Administration Act, which is what you're doing, that appointment and termination should be mirrored in terms of the required votes. So I have written it as an affirmative vote of 4 members and termination by an affirmative vote of 4 members. That is a 4-1 minimum vote required to terminate. Could be a 4-0, I guess, if there was a missing person. The concepts of that, and of course, we can change that to a 3-2 if the board wants, and you can go up to a 5-0 if you want. I don't believe that is beneficial in this situation when it is your ordinance, because again, a 3-2 can change the ordinance, so the 5-0 is kind of superfluous at that point in time. That being said, the concept is this gives a person starting out something more than a bare minimum, and it gives them security beyond the bare minimum of a bare majority vote. So that's why that's included, but that is subject to your approval today. Everything else is virtually identical to what you see in Okaloosa and Santa Rosa counties, including everything in 215, 216, and 217. Primarily are my own language, but they mirror the processes as set forth and described to me by a number of counties, most notably that of Escambia County related to department heads subject to confirmation. I'll go ahead and say, so everybody's up here, I know I've spoken to several commissioners who were still not comfortable that they wished for this to be part of the ordinance, or were uncomfortable with the overall process. The general consensus I heard, though, was I'll take a look at it, but I'm not sure I'm in favor of doing a confirmation process or not until I see it. So this is the same thing we talked about at the last meeting and mirrors what Commissioner Drake asked, which was a streamlined process for department head confirmation, which would be that after all hiring practices are followed, that the matter would be placed forward to the board for its approval for a majority vote, and that it could be done through a consent agenda with any commissioner being allowed to remove the item, and that if confirmation is to be done, it would not be a public interview process, it would be an internal matter of the county, and that these persons would not be subject to separate discussion as a personnel matter under general public comment, as it is an internal hire of the board. I would note that the section about department heads subject to confirmation, I believe it is appropriate the board adopts through a resolution who those department heads actually are. But until you get to do that, the cleanest way to do it is to identify each of those as the individuals who are the heads of department for departments that actually have a departmental budget. So Melissa identifies them as a department budget in the county, and you're director of that. You are a department head. So this is consistent with what was presented 30 days ago. No substantive changes besides the first 2 parts I noted about moving qualifications to a resolution and the actual vote. Everything else mirrors what was circulated at and after that meeting. So for the board's discussion, otherwise I would need a motion to approve.
Well, I personally think 3 months is a long time to move to the area. I would rather make it either the 30 days or 2 months, would be my thought. I think 3 months is an awful long time to have somebody who knows where they live and trying to come back and forth if they come back and forth. The other thing I'm thinking about is what about a 3-2 to hire and a 4-1 to fire? Because the rate we've been firing people lately, I don't think we're going to find anyone unless we do offer a 4-1 for that. And I do believe that the county administrator and I know at Escambia County, they include the deputy county administrator and the assistant county administrator in those, as well as the department heads that are to be confirmed. And I think we can come up with a list of who that applies to. If it applies to people that have a budget that they maintain, I'm open for different options on that, but I do feel like it's our responsibility to, at a minimum, confirm the county administrator the deputy and not necessarily the assistant. Anyone else have any comments? Go ahead.
This has nothing to do with any contracts, right? Contracts would be separate.
The only thing about a contract dealing with this in here does say that under 212, the terms of employment upon appointment shall be set by a written contract. It does require that a written contract exists.
Okay. I got a lot to say on that later on, but I was on the fence on the 4-to-1, but I think a 4-to-1 kind of gives some sustainability to an applicant. 3-2, okay, but I mean, 4-to-1, I think you'd be pretty confident. But the only other thing is, when we put this out for hire or for applications, that we actually go through the process and look at all the applications and not just jump ahead of ourselves. But I don't know. I'll see what Commissioner Gladwell and Commissioner Anderson have to say, but I'm for this at the moment.
Commissioner Anderson, did you want to speak?
I think, first of all, I think all this is gonna do is slow the process down. I'm definitely not for having it 3-2 to hire and 4-1 to fire. I think that, that's a problem. I think you're going to, we've got 2 positions in admin right now. Is that correct, Mary? And I think that if you put that out today, Mary, it would add at least another month to the hiring process. Because every one of us is going to have to sit down and interview that director. We're going to have to go through all the applications for that job. And we're going to have to decide which one we want. And that's taking power away from admin. And it's going to increase the number of months that we have a chance to hire somebody. I think that every commissioner has every right to look at the applications, but it's going to slow things down in hiring people if we do that.
And just for clarification, it is not required that every commissioner interview. It says the board as a whole has to make that decision. So the way it is worded is the Board of County Commissioners, if it so desires to conduct interviews, shall do so with each individual board member of the candidate in separate sessions to include a representative of HR. That means the board would have to approve by majority vote that it's going to engage in it. So if 3 board members want to conduct interviews, then you conduct interviews. If 3 don't, you do not have to interview these candidates. That's the board's discretion.
But you can.
You can, but you don't have to.
Okay.
I think it's very dangerous to start interviewing directors. I think that's getting into day-to-day way too much. The county administrator is supposed to hire and fire those people. And so we're asking for it. And I mean, we just had a confirmation process that went 2-2. So, you know, I don't know that I think Commissioner Anderson is probably right. We're just gonna lengthen the process and make it harder to hire people. And I think saying that you gotta have a 4-to-1 vote to fire, 2 weeks after we just fired somebody on a 3-2 vote, sort of hypocritical at best. I'm not prepared to agree to, I mean, I think hiring on 3-2 is good, but I think we need to keep it like it is for now. And I'm not sure about a confirmation process, period. I don't know that, I mean, yeah, it's introducing politics into positions that should not be political. There is no way that the Public Works Director, the Emergency Management Director, the Library Director, the Veterans Director, I mean, those should not be political positions. And this confirmation process lends itself to making these things political, and I don't like that at all.
Would all those people that you just mentioned fall under that have their own budget? That they-
As of right now, if the goal is to pare that back, we can, because again, the title gives you a little flexibility here. We can certainly strike the second paragraph of 216, and therefore department heads will only be that what the board memorializes in a separate resolution, and you can pare that list back. I was trying to provide an immediate, okay, we adopted a confirmation process, who's in, who's out. I was trying to come up with something that didn't require a lengthy debate on that, but we can certainly come back with that, and we can agree that 216, second paragraph, stricken. Commissioners, I will say this. I have asked around, I've done, I think, as much research as is reasonably possible, short of going and physically sitting down with department heads at 67 different counties. I have heard some of the comments that both Commissioner Glau and Commissioner Anderson raised, that it at times can raise that issue of if there's a very sensitive hire that creates some political issue. But by and large, the answer I've gotten from the state agencies, FACT, Florida League of Cities, from multiple other counties, has been that a department confirmation procedure, provided it can be handled through the consent agenda, which the board always has a right to say, hey, I want to talk about this person separately, is there, has not caused them problems in making hires. In fact, places like Escambia that do confirmations have said no, they can't recall it actually being an issue in the last 10 or 15 years on any hire that's come up. What they have said, in all fairness, is that it puts an increased burden on both HR and admin to make sure the person they're presenting has been fully and thoroughly vetted, and that justification is then carried through to the board to make sure that everything is done correct. Where they have had problems, more than anything, have been in what and this is not Escambia County, but the few that I have talked to, internal hire promotions, where there's been a desire to see external applications instead. That's the only area that I can tell you I have had comment after comment after comment about, to the point that I was kind of surprised the first time I heard it, was basically, no, that's where we do sometimes see an issue. We like this person, we think they're wonderful, but shouldn't we open this up to outside interviews? Not saying we won't hire them, but we want to see them versus the outside candidates, and not just create a automatic line of succession. So those are the comments I've gotten back. I just wanted you to have that. I think it can. Everything I've been told, everything I've heard from you, I think it's realistic. It can slow the process down. It doesn't have to. That's going to be a board and administrator function. As to the hiring, what I would say is this. My earlier comment of why I put it in 4141 remains. I think there should be a degree of consistency between the two. If someone can get hired on a 3-2, on a bare majority, you probably need to leave the termination at a 3-2 if that's how it's going to work, and vice versa. If you can hire somebody on a 4-1, you shouldn't fire them on a 3-2. Now, that is based on the model doctrines that people look to. But the vast majority of these I've reviewed, 3-2. Having worked under a number of 3-2 agreements over the years and dealt with people with 3-2s, I don't think it is necessarily unreasonable to expect that as a scenario. I brought it back in conformity because we have a 4-1 in our CFO contract, so that's why I started with that, and my intention was to mirror it rather than have, well, why do we only need 3 to hire but 4 to fire, or vice versa? So, but the board can choose either one today, and I think if you stick with 3-2, you can see how it works, and that would match up to pretty much everywhere else in the Panhandle that I've reviewed as a model ordinance that's not a full charter county.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Ultimately, the buck stops with us, hopefully. But as I said in a few previous meetings when we talked about confirmations, it doesn't stop with us. We are held accountable, but our hands are tied. So our only action or inaction is with the county administrator. So in order for us to be actually held accountable, that's why I'm fighting for the confirmation process, because I think we should have a say-so in the, at least the hiring aspect, to see these folks before they're confirmed, before we start paying them their paycheck. I think we at least are owed the opportunity to look over these folks, not having the tail wag the dog and bringing somebody up here after they already been collecting a paycheck for a confirmation. That was my only qualm. If you just took that one sentence out of 12574, I'd be game. Just bring the person to us prior to confirming, instead of offering the job, accepting the job, and paying them a paycheck, because it's a moot point after that. So, I mean, in order for us to loosen our hands up a little bit to have, I mean, we can't control the firing aspect, but how about having us at least be acknowledged in the hiring process of just those directors? What is it, 5, 6, 7? I don't know what all the directors are.
17.
So why not? Out of 500 employees? I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm asking for too much. That's all I have.
I honestly don't have a problem going to the 3-2 on both sides of that. I do believe that we need to confirm them. I do also agree that we don't need to confirm everybody, like some of the people that you mentioned. I think we could reduce that to people, the important ones, like the planning director, you know, things like that.
Everybody's important.
Well, I mean, the ones that
can't tell
have a
one
huge
department they're
job.
not important.
Well, I don't mean it like it's not important. I mean it like some areas are a lot larger than other areas. There's a lot more people that fall under, say, Public Works, and planning and different departments than, for instance, the library that you mentioned, I think. I mean, there may be a lot more people in the library than I'm aware of. Maybe a lot more than I'm aware of.
Veterans
Okay,
Affairs only has 2.
right,
But that's an option
Right.
for us to decide,
right,
correct?
right.
And we can adjust those. Can I make one, or I ask for one clarification, and
Sure.
possibly make a suggestion of that? I think there may be a middle ground, even on this 4132 discussion. Why don't we say, use my verbiage of appointed by and terminated by an affirmative vote of 3 members rather than majority of the board? The big thing that I've heard time and again that I haven't said today is just saying majority creates a problem, because if you get 2 members out, a 2-1 vote can fire somebody, or a 2-1 vote can hire somebody, and then a minority of the board is hiring. So if we say that, that guarantees you that you've got to at least have a unanimous vote of the 3 members present, 3 out of 4 or 3 out of 5. It's always got to be 3. It can never drop to 2. So if we do that, we could solve that. And then if we dropped paragraph 2 of 216, that would greatly reduce the number of confirmations you have, and you would then set the list of people you want to confirm.
Okay. You all right with that? I'm all right with it. All right, is everyone all right with that?
I can live with that.
I need a motion to adopt then, if that's the case.
Motion to adopt.
That's still not fixing the confirmation issue.
Well, I think when we reduce the number of people that we consider department
If I'm
heads,
wrong,
that would
we
be,
would decide who would be confirmed.
right.
You bring that back through a board action and resolution of which individuals will be confirmed.
So we could just say engineering, building, parks and rec, and whatever, and that's the only 4 that we would do.
Right.
Yeah,
Or-
the
or
board,
just one more.
but until the board adopts a resolution, you're not confirming anybody is the
Okay.
legal effect of this.
All right.
Okay.
Is that a second?
Yeah, I guess.
We have a motion and a yeah, I guess. A motion and a second. Any more comments from the board?
I'm just against this. I'm not gonna be for it.
Okay. Anyone from the audience like to speak to this? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
3-1.
2.5 to 1.
2 and a begrudging
3/4.
third, I think. So I will say to the board, Commissioner Curry asked, previously about having the officers and employees section of the code expanded to include positions like the finance director, the attorney. When I suggested to you I could have something for you at this agenda along with this, one, I had forgotten this meeting was on a Monday. Similarly, because I forgot it was on a Monday, I had not done the math correctly. And so the same reason this next item we're going to bring up about the ADU is being done under emergency adoption processes, there's no way that justifies an emergency. We could not advertise to have that back to you in time. So it'll be forthcoming, but we could not meet the statutory advertising time frame for an ordinance between your last meeting and this meeting because of the turnaround times on advertising. So we still are coming back. We've not forgotten about it.
Okay, thank you.
So
We're going to take a 10-minute break.
that works. We will remain in public hearing for the second ordinance adoption afterwards.
Hello, we are back in order, and we're still in public hearing.
Correct. This is the second of the two ordinances presented as the add-on ordinance based on the board's discussion at its prior board meeting about amending the land development code to address the short-term rentals for accessory dwelling units. One, I believe that was the board's intent because the board felt that made sense. But two, I'm advising you that I believe the strict application of the way we've applied that provision is in violation of the state statute that preempts us from doing this. So therefore, I find this to be an emergent and imminent requirement for us to enact this. In light of that, because it is one preempted by state law, two, the ordinances adopted, or the legislative adoptions of prohibitions on ordinances that have adverse effects on businesses due to preempted ordinances exposing the county to additional sanctions and fees warrants the immediate adoption of this to bring it into compliance with state law. Accordingly, I'm asking the board to find under an imminent and emergency basis that this ordinance is necessary to bring us into compliance with state law, and that this ordinance would thereby delete 2.2000B3C, reading, "The accessory dwelling unit shall not be available for short-term vacation rental." If I may have a motion, I will need a 2/3 majority vote, which today is any 3/4 gets us there.
Motion to approve the ordinance.
Mr. Atkinson, before we go forward.
Yes, sir.
Could you explain that again?
Yes, sir. So we have a provision in our code that indicates that accessory dwelling units shall not be available for short-term vacation rentals, as the board heard at its last meeting. Florida legislature preempts the regulation of short-term rentals. There's been language in our code going back many years dealing with a variety of issues, but at one point in time, it read commercial short-term rentals. Not sure what a commercial short-term rental is, but it's certainly not something that saves us in this case. This ordinance and its application in 2.20, the top level start of the zoning district started in 2018, well after 2011. I am of the opinion that if we continue to leave this on the books and don't enforce it, you're probably okay. The fact that we now know it is being enforced presents us with a scenario where we could be subject to, if you recall, the 2023 legislative amendments, that if a county passes an ordinance that adversely affects a business, it's subject to sanctions and damages. If the county passes an ordinance that's preempted by state law, people are allowed to sue and seek damages under that. We've not been sued as of today, and by doing this on an emergency basis, I believe it saves the county from the potential litigation therein. If the board had not expressed its intent to do it, it would be different. But, yes, sir.
So, when was it, a couple of weeks ago, we had a couple come up, and this is gonna take care of their problem.
Absolutely.
For the record, the thing was, the way we had the ordinance was, you could live in the carriage house and rent out the big house, but you could not live in the big house and rent out the carriage house.
Absolutely
Does
correct.
not make any sense to me.
And it makes no sense to me either. And then as a practical matter, the Attorney General agrees with you, Commissioner. There's a difference between a dwelling and a structure. It's clearly allowed as a dwelling. Since it's allowed as a dwelling, all dwellings are able to be used for this. Now, I believe that if we had left this under accessory structures, as it may have been many, many, many years ago, as opposed to dwelling units, we might have a savings clause there, but even the Attorney General says that's not subject to preemption. You can't rent out a unair conditioned, the county can stop people from renting out a shed to be a short-term rental because it's not a dwelling. So you're exactly right. We have already let those persons know specifically that Mr. Corman reached out and indicated they were good to proceed, that this was an unenforceable provision. But this finalizes it and takes care of their issue and anybody else's.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more comment from the board? Any comment from the audience? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion
Thank you,
passes.
Mr. Atkinson, for taking care of that.
Yes,
Yes,
thank
sir.
you very much.
Thank you. And may I have a motion to close the public hearings?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Public hearing is closed.
Thank you. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Vice Chair Dan Curry, you are up. Number 16.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to have a discussion, I don't know if there's going to be a motion that's needed, but on contracts and funding agreements, my concern is with the the last county administrator's contract where it appeared that it did not have a legal signature, like the legal department did not sign off on that contract. It was just, and that may be how it goes. I'm just, these are my concerns. That it just has the chair and the applicant as the signature on the contract. I would think that by putting legal, having a signature line on there, that would kind of show me that legal went through this, actually approved it, even though they may have wrote it or they didn't write it. But to me, I think that would add to it, and I wouldn't even disagree by having HR director on there as the fourth signature, but at least legal on there, so at least 3 sets of eyes witnessed this contract and what was on it. With that being said, I listened to the meeting in February where evidently Commissioner Glidewell's suggestion or statement was not considered in that contract, where he had stated that we just dropped the interim and put permanent on there and with the same contract. Now, you can give me the timeline, Mr. Atkinson, but that to me was kind of wrong. I mean, Commissioner Glidewell made that statement for that to happen. It didn't happen from what I can see and read, and came back and then was put under a consent agenda item and then approved. So I just want to at least learn from what has happened and grow from that and maybe fix it so this doesn't happen again. Can you give me that timeline, Mr. Atkins, just so I can?
At the first of the 2 board meetings in March, the issue of the county administrator was brought forward by HR. At that meeting, the board approved entering into a contract to make Mr. Sunday the county administrator and remove the interim title from his designation. The motion made by Commissioner Glidewell was under the same terms and conditions of the existing contract, or at least that's how the minutes are worded, so I'm going to use that. The minutes reflect some additional discussion thereafter, after having listened to that meeting. Again, I would say that there is ample discussion that follows that, not that the minutes don't reflect that, but the part of it that is very clear was HR sought clarification. And that clarification was, well, am I going to bring you back a contract? Commissioner Glidewell, and he can correct me if he feels that I'm misrepresenting how he did it, because I'm going to paraphrase some of this, indicated, I don't believe that's necessary, but you're welcome to effectively. It seemed to be the board's general consensus. No one said, no, don't bring back a contract. No one don't. Mr. Kervin said, I'll be back with a contract. Mr. Sunday said, I'll review over it. I'll get with Nathan, review through it. Thereafter, they reached out, Mr. Kervin, and I can't speak, I'm not going to speak for Mr. Kervin or Mr. Sunday other than to say that it is a fair assumption that those 2 discussed the terms of it. They asked legal to draft a revised version of it. The revised version that was requested from HR to legal would be something that basically converted Mr. Robertson, the former county administrator's contract, into a contract. An email with the interim contract, the draft contract that became part of the consent agenda at the second board meeting in March of 2024, and Mr. Robertson's contract was circulated. Those were approved as to form. They are all valid contracts. There is no question about that. The matter was then placed on the consent agenda. The board voted and approved that. I will say that I don't find there to be an illegality in that process, but I do agree that there has been consistent discussions between purchasing, legal, and the clerk's office, as we're going through a contract management audit right now in our process, where things are archived. This is an example that I will say that was compounded, unfortunately, because as recently as 2 to 3 weeks ago, in response to public records requests, the county was advised by a member of the clerk's office the interim contract was the only contract that had ever been signed. We know that's not the case. And I want to be very clear, I've reviewed the second contract was signed timely. There was no error in that signing by Mr. Sunday, by Chairman Anderson at the time, or anyone else, and it was scanned into the clerk's database in April of 2024. approximately a week or so after it was finally executed. There's no doubt in my mind that was a validly executed contract because the board approved it. I would say the fact that we couldn't lay our hands on that through one contract system creates part of the problem for us in the county, and we're working on that. That's why we've talked to you about a records management division, that everybody at the clerk's office should see the same thing the board does and vice versa. Two, I will say, I do not particularly find the presentation of that document on the consent agenda to be the way that I would want it presented, but I will say up front, and I'll defer to the board members who were here one way or the other, I wasn't here at the first meeting in March, and I arrived back in the country about a day before this. You could read Mr. Glowell's motion to be consistent with that contract. You could read it to be inconsistent with it. And you can read the contract that was signed to be consistent with the prior county administrator's contract. I have the utmost faith that the board does its job in reviewing documents in terms of whether it meets their intent or not. It's not up to me to say that this meets your policy intent, but I can tell you in this case, I don't know that my signature on the back end of it would have changed anything on this, Commissioner Curry, but I don't disagree with you that a standardized who signs what contracts, who attests to what contracts, clerk, attorney, chairman, countersign, third party, other contracted party, that's something we do want to standardize and work on for you. As to, and I may be stepping on your toes on 17, and so I'll back away from that delicately and simply say that for the consent agenda, the rule that I have always followed is it must be a matter the board has discussed in public before and come to consensus on. The board says we're going to do something, you come forward with it on the consent agenda. If that is the case, then the consent agenda supports it. I've reached out, you and I spoke, Commissioner Curry and I did speak about this item, and he asked me a fair question, how do other people do this? And I said, they're not, that's a general rule, but I'm going to say everybody does a little different. The only thing I would say is if we really wanted to close that up, one thing we could do is have, as part of staff's presentment of consent agenda items, attach a copy of the minutes, whether they are draft or permanent, for the board previously discussed it, so the board has that at its fingertips for ease of use and reference, and make that part of the consent agenda item. It should be a relatively straightforward process to do that. I think that would help in that. It would definitely show that question. In a perfect world, Mr. Kervin would have put that on the regular agenda, said this is the same contract we gave to Mr. Robertson with the updated salary, and let the board approve that, and there would have never been one question about this in my mind. The fact that he didn't does not render it invalid because it was at a public meeting, the public had a chance to speak on the consent agenda, and the board voted to do it. I regret, however, that our process in that has led to this consternation and confusion, but in my review, the contract is valid, but I do think we can tighten up, and we did say we're coming back with some meeting procedures. We already have 7 pages of them. Some of them we said we need to clean up. I'll gladly take a stab at a slightly different paragraph that doesn't add many lines or words about the consent agenda if the board would so like.
Well, I just think at least, at bare minimum, I think there's more that needs to be, but at least the 3 top positions, I don't think should be on a consent agenda. I think if you're dealing with a contract with your contract, with Melissa's contract, or with the county administrator's contract, that needs to be an agenda item, not a consent agenda item, so then everybody is aware, the public and us. Because to me, I've watched Commissioner Glidewell's motion when we went from LDC to here, and to me, they didn't do what his motion said. That's just my opinion. And I don't know, I think that's wrong. He made the motion, accordingly, and unless that interim contract says something different or the same, they didn't go by what he said. I mean, I don't know, that's my opinion, and I disagree with that. That's why I'm bringing this up. So at least these 3 positions need to come before the board on a regular agenda, no consent agenda items. I could make a motion on that. I don't know if it would pass, but that's just my thoughts. I put discussion or possible motion. I think it's fair to discuss this,
Let me
to be
add-
honest with you.
Add something. When they're on the consent agenda, they're not signed at that time because they're not going to be signed until after they're approved. So what was on the consent agenda wouldn't have a signature. However, it was signed afterwards, and I have seen the signed document that Commissioner Anderson signed and Stan Sunday signed. I'm in agreement with you that I watched that as well and went back to watch it. And it seemed as though it should have been the exact same contract that was signed with Mr. Sunday at the very beginning as an interim, and just to or Commissioner Glidewell's point, just remove that word interim and use the same contract.
All right.
And that was not done. And so, and I do look at all of the consent agenda items, but that would not have jumped out at me because it was one paragraph in there that was added that was not an unusual paragraph. It was just a paragraph that wasn't in the previous contract. So I think we've learned a lesson here, and to your point, it's probably a good idea to attach a previous one as well, so that we have a comparison.
All right.
But, yeah, I agree with you.
But
Do you want to say something?
I think all this should be in the revised meeting procedures. Rather than us piecemealing it, we need to do it all at one time.
I don't disagree with that either.
Fair enough. I don't need a motion on that.
Okay.
That's coming to you.
All right. So the second part of this, I was going to segue into a single depository type records collection. It seems like there's back and forth, and this is a great example. I mean, we need to learn from it to where, where do we, why can't we have everything in one depository with a backup? Is there an issue with
I
that?
think we do.
Well, it's not working.
Well, let me say this, the clerk has it. I think the challenge is that the board needs equal access to it. As part of our right now, the clerk is engaging in a contract audit through a third party, dealing with our contract process audit, looking at how everything works. I expect that we'll get the final version of that in the coming weeks, if not coming months, but it's probably be sooner than later. We've discussed the need for a formalized central database that the county has access to. And obviously, we don't want write access. We don't want to be able to amend contracts or delete them, but we need to be able to see the same thing the clerk does. In a idyllic version of this, I would like it to be where every commissioner has it at their fingertips in their office as well. Not because I don't want y'all to call Genera. You're more than welcome to call Genera for every single thing you need. But I also think that if you say, hey, I need this contract, if they can't type it into a single search box on their computer and pull it up like that, it's not as efficient as it needs to be. And one day, the ultra idyllic goal is, subject to documents that require redaction, having a public-facing interface to allow the public to have the same access to those documents. Right now, we can find every unexecuted contract you ever want just by going back through the agendas and using our search on our county website. Now, the signed ones, we got to go to somebody else about. So and I know Melissa may have a lot more to chime in on this. I know the contract audit has dealt more with the process for management of those contracts. One thing that we want to look at is a start to finish contract process with a centralized records management division of the county that admin has access to, you have access to, ultimately it also oversees the public side and works hand in hand with the clerk. We've received no pushback, by the way, from the clerk as part of that. I will give an example. The clerk's office, under prior board clerks, without specific direction from this board or their supervisors, had a tracking sheet that they were just using, kind of an Excel spreadsheet of this contract was approved at this agenda, here's where it is, start date, finish date. And that was maintained. Was we learned it depended on which employee from the clerk sat where Ms. Laird does now. I mean, this was well prior to her tenure. But if somebody else sat there, that may not get logged in. After those clerks left, there was no direction to keep it up in the same form or fashion because it wasn't part of the actual duties. So part of this is making sure that we all have one thing. And one simple thing in terms of what our goals are and our obligations are to one another, because having worked with Ms. Laird before, had she been told, keep us a spreadsheet, she'd have us a very robust spreadsheet. But if that wasn't something that she realized had become a dependency, and it somewhat had, the county relied on that document despite the fact that it was not the actual obligation of anybody to keep it up. So ultimately, where we are going with this is we expect to have process back before you. The clerk's office has been diligent with us in this process. They've attended several different phone conferences with us over this. Their third-party consultant, Protiviti, has had, I don't know if we'd say weekly meetings, but it's been pretty at least monthly meetings with OMB and legal to discuss this process. So I think you're actually going to see a very robust takedown of our system and an ability to put that together. And coming back to you with some of that, we already have some of this in the budget from last year to allow us to build this process out with the FTEs. It's now that this work through Protiviti is coming to a conclusion, I think we'll be in good shape.
Perfect. That's all I got.
Madam Chair, I'd like to hear from the clerk's office on this.
Sure.
Come on up.
Good afternoon, everyone. Sydney Noyes, I'm the Chief Deputy Clerk and General Counsel for the Clerk's Office. Thank you for letting me speak. I really just, well, first I would like to apologize for Clerk Sconiers not being able to be here. We weren't aware this was on the agenda, so as soon as we saw it, we wanted to come down just in case you guys had any questions. On behalf of Clerk Sconiers, I want to make it clear that we want to work with all of you to make sure we're fulfilling our statutory and constitutional obligation to maintain the records. I think we do a great job of that, but as Attorney Atkinson stated, there are areas for improvement, and we hope to work with all of you. And we'd be happy to meet with all of you individually to go over our processes. But if you ever have any questions or concerns about any particular contracts or our processes, if you would reach out to me or Clerk Sconiers, we're happy to have those discussions with you.
Wonderful. Thank
Thank
you
you,
very
Ms.
much.
Noyes.
Appreciate it.
17.
Any other comments? No? Okay, go ahead.
I've had several people call me about the, the rotation process when it comes to vendors. So I had talked with engineering a little bit, but I want to get a consensus of what a true rotation is, because what I was explained wasn't really a rotation. It was, I hate to use this word, it was almost like a hybrid rotation, because there's different qualifying factors involved after a particular vendor is, maybe settled with or chosen. So I didn't know if Mary or if Jason's here, he could kind of, I think you guys had suggested that Jason's probably the best person because he's the one who picks the, or you want to speak for him?
I could speak to the generalities of this. If we have any details that, I don't work in it quite as much.
Gotcha.
But if we have any details, I can always rely on Jason, and Anna works with this quite a bit. And I'm assuming we're just talking about the continuing engineering services?
Yeah, I believe that's the only one. Is there more that's on the rotation aspect?
That's the
It's
only
just
one I can
those?
think of. It's just the continuing engineers, and we've got 12 on rotation now. And it is a little bit of a hybrid. It's more, anything that makes it a hybrid is for the benefit of the county. We looked at everything that's been awarded since the continuing services agreements were approved back in October of 2022. And we see one where it was skipped in the rotation. Now, the rotation started by the ranking and the way that they were scored. So we had one that was skipped because there was an urgent need. If a firm cannot, if there's a time deadline on something and we need to skip them, we'll skip and then we'll come back to them. I see another one that was out of rotation because we needed a firm that specialized with drainage expertise. Anytime that it does not go in rotation, there is documentation of why we used another firm. And you're going to go back, you're going to get right back on that rotation when you can. Another one, the previous firm was unavailable, so that was skipped. Sometimes if we have a project that has been completed and we're in phase 2, it would cost more to go with a new engineer, so then we would use the engineering firm that started the first phase. Those are really going to be the reasons why we would not strictly use the rotation. We can make the rotation as strict as the board would like it. We try to leave this to where the continuing engineering services are at the best advantage for the board and getting your projects completed.
Well, why I question this, because when
Yes.
I got the, what the payout was, you know, I saw that there's 4, maybe 5 that are in the millions, and the rest of them are below that, even maybe 25% or 30% are in the 200,000 range. So that's why I questioned what kind of rotation is this? And then I wanted to ask, who starts or who, when you put in the project, who tells you next up on deck for rotation? And I was told it was Jason.
It is. He
Okay.
maintains the spreadsheet, and we have the firms and the ranking originally 1 through 12, where they landed in the solicitation, and then he keeps a spreadsheet to know who is next in the rotation.
All right, so, and then another question I asked, and I answered, or got an answer for, was sometimes a project might be in different phases, and correct me if I'm wrong, Anna, and there was an engineering firm or whoever that was on the first phase, and it's just natural to go ahead and go back, even though they might have picked Melissa Engineering as the next rotation, they would send in a letter saying, we'd prefer to have Mary Engineering because she did phase 1 and it would streamline a little better. So that's when I'm sitting there clicking, I'm like, well, what kind of rotation is this? You know, is it selective? Is it, you know, what's all factored in here? Because a rotation to me is basically, you know, it goes Glidewell, Anderson, Curry, you know, it's.
And there
so-
is a sheet, if there's ever something skipped on rotation, there's going to be something backing it up to document
And that's what she
why.
said, they have to have something to be presented to Jason, I believe it is, showing why they want to skip that rotation or skip that.
And this
So-
is something with the variability in the cost of these agreements that it's difficult to make it really equal. Plus, you have some contracts that cannot fall under this rotation. It may be that a grant agreement prohibits this from, it states that it has to be bid out, or if the CEI agreement or the construction contract is estimated to be over the statutory threshold, we have to bill it out, to bid it out. So when you see a firm that's much higher than another, it's possible if we go through every one of those projects, we'll see one that was actually bid out and was not awarded under the
Gotcha.
continuing services
That's
agreement.
just what came first to my eyes when I'm like, well, why is there 4 or 5 getting all the work? What's wrong with the other 8? So that's what sparked my inquisitive mind. But I just wanted to have that discussion out there because I had people calling me saying the same thing, you know, why does X always get this, or why does X always get that, you know, so thank you for Anna, Jason, everybody for helping me with this, and you. I didn't expect you to be the answer person, but thank you.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Is there any way, without getting into names, we had one of them screw up the Mojo building badly. We've had a couple of road projects that have been screwed up badly. And these firms are still getting work. And I think there should be some process that when you screw up something, you're out.
Yes.
We need to just
disagree
document.
whatsoever.
Well, the board has the unilateral authority to terminate any one of these persons off rotation with or without cause, simply by giving them notice, majority vote of the board.
We did discuss that one before, the one about the Mojo building.
We are bringing back the final resolution on that to you within the next 2 weeks. We wanted to get through, I just will touch base on that. We did want to get through making sure a CO was issued and the final work was confirmed so that there were no further issues. That will be resolved. And then, of course, the board can always at any time review any of these and determine whether they want to keep them or let them go.
One of the same ones messed up a road project in my district badly. They were the CEI firm that was supposed to be protecting our interest, and they signed off on it. So now we can't even sue them. And the road is it's terrible. And so there should be some way that we get rid of these people. If they can't do work consistent with standard expectations, they shouldn't be on the rotation.
Can
You wanna
we,
bring
can
it
we
to the
just,
agenda?
well,
Yeah.
can we have direction or to tell admin or legal to bring us back something on that? I agree with Commissioner Gladwell.
Finance and bring some information back.
Yeah, because I mean, it's not really fair to keep them in rotation, you know. I agree. I agree.
Costing us hundreds of thousands of dollars.
And
totally
Commissioners,
agree.
I just want to say that this goes beyond just the continuing engineering services. We try to make sure to let all the departments know, if you have a problem, if you've got a purchase order, a contract, anything with a vendor, and they do not satisfactorily deliver the service or the goods, document. If we can document it, we can get them out of the system and eliminate them from future solicitations.
Would that be, what would you bring back? A policy, a procedure, an ordinance? What do you got?
We're gonna probably talk about, I think what we'll probably talk about is, first off, anybody's staff feels falls into the terms that we've heard described here today.
Mhm.
And then probably talk about, requesting a routine review of those two county admin from engineering to determine what needs to be presented to the board for your action.
Perfect.
Why did CEI sign off on that if it was so bad?
Your guess is good as mine.
We wish we knew.
Do we have any answers on that?
Yes, Anna Hudson, Walton County Engineering. So the issue that Commissioner Gladwell is discussing, that was a contract prior to what we put in the 2022 with the performance evaluation reviews. That triggered the need for, after it has to be in the contract per legal, we had to add that language in each contract to make sure we could review them and they were aware we would review them at the completion of the job. So that instigated the new policy in 2022. In regards to, without naming names, the Mojo building, that project's not complete, so a performance evaluation review has not been done yet. Obviously, we can do that and provide that to the board upon completion. And that could be, obviously, at the board's discretion, how you want to move forward.
Are
But
we at
we
5
did
years on that building, or how long has it been?
Less than that, we didn't buy it until 2021, I think, but we're probably.
I do not know on that one. That was not
Okay.
something that I was a project manager with, so, but it's been many years, for sure.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
It seems to me like, and you and I have talked about this, and I've talked to Chance, and I've talked to Charlie, and talked to Greg when he was here. It seems to me like there could be, I'm not saying there is, but there could be a conflict of interest that it's my turn or I get the bid, whatever, and my company fixes that road or builds that road. And then they come in and do the CSI. Because, I mean, a lot of these engineering firms do their own CSI. And I'm not really comfortable with that. And I don't know what to do about it, but
So my recommendation is we could work with legal, because right now on all of my DOT grant projects, that is absolutely not allowed per DOT. The design engineer cannot be the CEI firm. You have to have completely a separation of engineering firms. It might could be where the county could look at maybe adopting a similar policy.
Clay, would you look into that? Because I
We
think,
can.
and listen, and I sympathize with Commissioner Gladwell, because when I won the primary election in 16, Larry Jones and Mark Davis called me to ride with them to look at something. And it was in, I don't know if it was in your district then, but it was McKinley Road, I think.
It is now.
And you're driving down and it's like this. And, I mean, it was almost like a ride at Disney World. But the contractor fixed it.
Right.
So, and he did it, he didn't do it begrudgingly, and he was called, and he said, I'll take care of it. He did. But, again, I just think we need to separate who's in charge and the CSI. Because I think I'm not saying anybody's a crook, but I think it puts us in a bad situation, and I think it puts them in a bad situation when they're approving their own work. I really have a problem with that.
I agree 100%. It's approving your own work, I mean, that just is kind of silly. So I totally agree.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're happy to work with legal and take
Okay.
that language that DOT utilizes and
I mean, that's
make it
kind of,
work for
that's
the
kind of
county.
like taking a test and say, hey, teach, I got this, I'll grade it.
Yeah, right, right. Okay,
All
thank
right,
you.
thank you.
Thank
got
you,
another
Hannah.
Yep, last one, see how easy
You
these
were
are?
saved by the bell, Jason.
These are easy. I'm going to ask Ms. Melissa again because I wanted to see, I know we put something on the agenda about a forensic audit for planning department with fees and all that, so I wanted her to touch base where we're at with that, and I don't want to confuse that audit with any other audits that were done in the past or designed for the future. I just want to know where we're at with the forensic, the physical aspect of it.
Yes, sir. Well, after the last board meeting, I reached out to Maximus, and I'm awaiting a quote on the work. And from the notes I had at the last board meeting, I've got the scope of the agreement would be a review and recalculation of planning department collections of recreational plat fees, proportionate fair share fees, mobility fees, sidewalk fees, and preservation fees from 10/1/23 through current date, a comparison of planning fees charged with surrounding counties, and a review of fees charged versus cost of providing services, and recommendations to streamline operations and processes related to fees collected within the planning department. But when we talk about a forensic audit, that is not what I've requested a quote on. So that is really what I would kind of like to get further direction on today, because a forensic audit is going to be an in-depth examination of financial records and transactions, and it is looking specifically for irregularities.
I
So
think
we
that's what we
wouldn't-
need.
We wouldn't, that forensic wouldn't cover the 5, 6 things you have?
It would not, this is a more high-level review and recalculation. A forensic audit is looking at something's not right, and we're going and we're going to figure it out. But coming with that, I would say that if that's what the board is wanting, we would need to issue a solicitation, because the cost of that is going to be higher. And just to give you a reference, I was trying to see, I know there can be a lot of variability in the cost of these, but I did find where the city of Panama City, if you'll remember several years ago, they had an arrest of an employee, and they followed up with a forensic audit of some of their grant programs, and I believe it was an after-school program, and the cost of that came back at $175,000. So it is a difference in a big difference in the work.
I think the city of Freeport had one 4 or 5 years ago, and it cost right at $300,000
Something in that neighborhood.
and found nothing.
It just depends on the level of transactions and what all they have to look at. So when I say that 175, I couldn't tell you how close that would be to what would come back.
But I'd like all those that you named, all the, the mobility fees, the rec plat fees, all that, and you're saying forensic won't do that.
This is just going to be a
company won't.
higher level review to make sure that all of their calculations look
All right,
correct.
so I guess I'm confused with, I thought you said the forensic audit would not cover what, those 5 items.
Oh, it would just go into more depth. I see
Okay,
what you're
okay,
saying.
all right, all
I
right,
think she's saying the overkill.
okay.
But I would like to, go ahead.
I think the proper way to do it would be to have Maximus, have them to do the first audit, and let's see what it says. And then, and that's gonna be a lot cheaper. And then if there's something found that looks suspicious, funny, or irregular, then we go back and do the more in-depth.
Because then
audit.
you would pinpoint the
'Cause then,
problem
yes.
areas instead of
I mean,
forensic everything.
And, but, I mean, I don't want us to just throw them up $300,000 or $400,000.
No, I don't
away.
either, but, okay,
And,
I didn't put a
but-
motion on here for anything, I just wanted to discuss where we were at from that last.
Okay,
meeting,
and
so.
just for reference, I went back and looked because my time periods, I had forgotten the time period, but the Auditor General, the last time they were here, they looked at fiscal year 2018, and they looked at preservation and prop fair share and saw no discrepancies, and they looked at rec plat fees and saw where, I believe those had been overassessed $11,428. So just for reference, those have been looked at. It's not as recent as I had thought, but it was a few years ago.
Well, I'd like to see what Commissioner Gladwell said on those first
Okay.
5 audits, and then go from there. I mean, then come back. If we see a problem, then obviously we need to act.
We'll keep moving forward.
Well, I'd like to make a comment. I've done a records request for a lot of those documents, and because of what happened with Casa Magnolia. And that kind of generated a lot of questions for me. So when I looked at that, and I've only received partial of what I've requested, but our forms are not consistent. They need to be, in my opinion, they need to be redone. They need to be clear. They need to have a place for each fee, and it needs to be identified in there. And it's not. Some have fees, some don't have fees. And then I was under the impression that the developer would give the money to our CFO's office and that it would be processed that way. That's not how it works at all. What happens is the developer gives the money to planning, and planning gives the money to the clerk of courts, and the clerk of courts takes the money and puts it in the bank. But as far as, is there any checks and balances between what the developer owes, what the developer pays, and what gets in the bank? We don't have any checks and balances. And so I think that honestly, a forensic audit is really what we need to do, rather than wasting money on a preliminary one that's just going to give us, you know, a small indication. I think we really need to dig deep and find out how much money have we not been getting, or justifying that in fact we have been getting what we're supposed to. But honestly, from my perception and looking what I've looked at, it's a mess. So I think it would be hard for a company to go in there and that's not a forensic company, to go in there and really make heads or tails of it.
I don't think a forensic audit is, I think just a regular standard audit would be the way to go. And forensics are looking for criminal, and they're looking at a level of proof and a level of evidence that will sustain, that can be sustained in court. And that is going to, for an operation as big as our planning department, it could cost $600,000–700,000 easy. And so I think we need to get a baseline at a regular price of, and then if it's justified, we do what we got to do. But just throwing that kind of money around for no reason or on suspicion that's sort of tough.
Well, if we had checks and balances and we had a form that was, you know, really a valid form with all the appropriate information, it wouldn't be as bad. But we don't.
But I understand what you're saying, and I agree that we need to have good documentation. But those items, if they're occurring, are not criminal. That's processes, and that's things that aren't being done correctly. And the first audit will catch that and will give us recommendations on how to fix that. But a forensic audit might not even catch that, because they're not going to be looking at processes, they're going to be looking at crime.
I think they'll have to be looking at both. And I'm not so sure what they might find, and it might be well worth it in the money that we realize that we're due.
I think we found out the last time this happened, you can't go back and get it.
Mr. Chairman, I think we need to find smoke first. If what Melissa's saying will tell us if we're not collecting the right amount of fees, correct, or we're not collecting the right amount of mobility fees, or whatever fees there are, then that's evidence. That's something to take with us and go, hey, look, something's not right. It's time for a forensic, or it's time for.
Last one we did, though, said we collected too much.
Well, we got to be fair. We can't. I mean, we can't.
It also said we couldn't give it back, too.
So
Did
how
we
much would
have
this
any?
be? How much would this one be? How much would this cost? Because we spent $100,000 on an HR thing that was a fiasco.
I don't have the quote back.
Okay.
I'll pressure him today. I have kind of backed off until y'all could discuss this,
Okay,
but I will
okay.
get with him today to see if I can get a quote to you.
What do you think, Stephen,
About which part?
about an audit, whether it's a forensic audit or a basic audit?
I think there's value in what's been said, that if a larger view audit or 10,000 feet up kind of audit shows that there's some issue somewhere, and then do a forensic, I think that may be the better way to go, but, yeah, you know, it's up to the board, really, what they're willing to invest, I guess.
Can you tell us what the process is from your perspective? When the developer comes in, who determines how much they pay? Who gets that check? Who physically gets that check?
So with any development order, there's review fees and then associated impact fees and other fees that we have policy guidance for. Staff follows the policy. We calculate it the way it's identified in our policies. The project manager calculates those fees. We submit that to our planning finance technician who reviews them. If those fee calculations match, then we send them to finance for a final look. Once we receive back word that they agree with the calculation, then we charge that fee to the applicant. We put it in the development order or other documentation.
You send it to finance as in Melissa's office?
Yes.
Okay.
They shoot us an email, and we get that on the preservation fees, the rec plat fees, and the mobility fees.
Okay.
But isn't engineering involved in there somewhere with the formulations and the approval, or no?
So there is a new process where our mobility fees are checked by, excuse me, our subcontracted engineer, who does that second or that final look, and then gives us back, and if all the calculations.
What do you mean subcontractor?
Our DRMP does our engineering work for the planning department. I guess it's not a subcontractor, but our contract engineer.
So our own engineering can't look at our formulas and say yes, no, maybe? We have to sub that out?
I think that they are extremely busy, and I think that's why we have gone the route that we have. We already have a contract that does much of our engineering review, and it was just another box for them to kind of check in their review.
Well, that's the first I've heard of this. That's why, because I've asked about the mobility fee and the process thereof, and
Yeah.
I was told that our own engineering department is involved in this, not a subcontractor.
So it's kind of a process that's been in flux due to the nature of the mobility fee and some issues that have arisen. And it seemed at the time that the most appropriate way to ensure that we have a third set of eyes was our engineering folks that do that work, that are traffic engineers and can.
Seems like a
run
lot of
studies for us.
hands in one thing. I mean, that's exactly why we need an audit, to be honest with you. And I'm also leaning to the fence of Commissioner Johns on the forensic after what I just got told. I mean, because I had no clue that we were subcontracting a decision that's supposed to be made by us.
Well, it's
with
not
a mobility fee.
Sorry, it's not a decision.
Well, I want to stay with what it is. I'm just saying that with his statement, there's a lot of
Well,
other factors in it. that I
Let me
didn't know about.
be clear. It's not a decision that they're making. Staff still calculates it. Our internal finance person calculates it to make sure that those two numbers jive, and then it's sent to the third-party review, like similar to the finance department with our other fees, just to ensure that the calculation is working properly. So they're not making any decisions or collecting any money. They're just saying, yes, staff has performed that calculation correctly in accordance with our calculus.
What does that cost us?
I think we have a $50,000, $59,000 contract with them on an annual basis to do all of that work combined.
So does the check from the developer, once it's determined how much it is, it goes to the planning finance person or office?
So once they come into the office and they pay those fees into the system, physical checks and those sort of things are put in a vault and then taken to the clerk of courts, I believe. I'll be honest, I'm not intimately familiar with that process.
I believe that's correct. I believe, from what I've been hearing.
That's my understanding, yeah.
Okay.
Last question, I promise. Is that a rotation basis?
What's that?
The DRMP, OCAN?
No.
So
no,
you guys
they're-
just picked DRMP to,
We've had other folks in the past, but DRMP came in and we've been working with them since, I want to say 22, maybe 23 timeframe. And so, and forgive me, because after I said 59,000, so I actually don't know what DRMP charges us for individual engineering reviews for the fees itself. They do charge, and we charge the customer in turn for development order reviews. So these fee calculations now would be tied into that development order review or BPR review in some
So
instances
the applicant
as
is
well.
paying for that?
The applicant pays for their review, an engineering review, yes.
All right, that makes me feel a little better. Not much.
So I did want to just approach something else, if I can. I don't know
Sure,
if this is the right time.
absolutely.
But you did indicate that there was some inconsistencies with our reporting. So that's being addressed internally with a primary template that is being used now. I won't get into the weeds with that, but I do want to know, in that template, if there's information that you would like to see that isn't there, receipt
Yes.
numbers or what have you.
Yes.
If you could let me know, then I'll make sure that we improve our reporting for you.
Okay, that would be great. I just want something very simple, very easy to read, and it should have like proportionate fair share, whatever the case might be, mobility fee, whatever the fee is, and the fee next to it, and then when it's paid, the receipt number,
Yes.
and possibly even attaching that when it comes to the board for our review. If that receipt can be attached on there, that would be great, so that we can be sure that it's been paid.
Okay.
Because we really have, I have just assumed that everything is just moved along fine and everybody does what they're supposed to do and it gets paid, and I thought it went to Melissa, and obviously I didn't know that it went to the clerk's office. And I don't think that they have I don't think that they come back and ask questions, they accept what they're given.
Sure.
So, and rightfully so. So, but I would like to, I would like to have like the district on there and then the amounts for each item. I think that would be really helpful.
So we do currently have a table in the newest template report anyways that you all have seen in the past. It does indicate the fee, it does indicate what's owed. If it was paid, we put paid. But a lot of fees that, especially at the development order phase, we can't collect those fees prior to your approval,
Right,
right? We would have
right.
to issue refunds.
Right.
If that was the case in some instances. So, but we do practice in putting, those approximate fees in there. We probably need to do a little better in consistency-wise. But again, these are things that we're doing internally. I've directed staff to ensure that we're using the same template, that we're doing the same thing, so you all see the same thing every time.
That would be very helpful, because what I'm looking at right now, and granted, I'm going back from January of last year.
Sure.
So there's different templates.
There
and
is.
some of them, yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So, yeah, consistency, yeah, that'd be great. Thank you very
I
much.
promise one more question, I promise.
Sure, no, you're fine.
With DRMP, is there any conflict of interest? Are they doing anything when they're okay or not okay, and when they're looking through these mobility fees and giving their, whatever blessing? Does DRMP do any of the engineering for?
For a DRMP project? No,
Yes.
they do not.
So who do you pass that on
We
to?
would use internal engineer.
Great answer, thank you.
Yep. Anything else?
Okay, no, thank you very much,
you.
appreciate it. So I guess the direction is what?
Just, I guess, to stick with the five or six.
We'll wait and find out what they're going to charge. You're going to come back to us and let us know what they'll charge.
And what the details.
Mhm.
Yes, ma'am, thank you, Melissa.
Okay, all right, thank you, thank you. Are you?
I'm
more?
done.
You're done?
I'm done. See how
Commissioner
easy I am?
Glidewell.
Yes, I think in 2006, and Ms. Elam is here, and Mr. Atkinson is familiar with this, so if I get it wrong, y'all wave at me. But I believe in 2006, first of all, if you're familiar with Glendale proper, that's an old plat, and there are a lot of platted alleys in that area of the county, and that go back many, many, many years. Well, these individuals had bought all these lots that we're looking at, and that platted alley that runs through there was supposed to be abandoned. And so you fast forward, these individuals have built a wedding venue business and a house, and now they're trying to sell it, and they can't go through with their title insurance and close on the sale, because as you can see, they only abandoned half of that that alley, and the end of the alley now lies in the middle of these people's house. Now the county was supposed to do this. This is on the county. And I mean, it was 2006, there's nobody left. We can't fire anybody or take them out and horsewhip them. But nevertheless, these people need to sell that. They were wanting to move to Indiana, the current owners, and the new owners want to get on with their business. And they've got to get the rest of this alley abandoned so that we can move forward. So Ms. Elam is here and you want to talk? Have I messed it up enough?
Just a little bit of the facts.
Well.
Yeah, it's not going to affect what is needed. Johnny K. Elam, spelled E-A-L-U-M. I'm also a resident of Glendale. My family purchased this from the county in 1943, so I'm very familiar with all that is happening in Glendale. I'm also on 3 parcels that have alleys that Public Works probably needs to look at in Glendale. But for this purpose, what we have right now, when the abandonment was done in 2006, when you look at the abandonment, what was presented to the county was done. The question is, why did it not encompass the next 2 alleys that is owned by the same property owner? That's what we don't understand. So all that we are worried about today is the alley that is between lot 526 and 535. Those lots are 50 feet wide, and the alley is 20 feet. There is an 8.6 encroachment of a building that was permitted by the county. So there is 41.4 feet that would give a setback, give everything that we need in order to get the title insurance and be able to close. And my sellers that are in Indiana can start jobs, and the buyers will have a place to live. And we tried to go through some of the ways that, have been, and we've been told that it could be up to 6 months for this to be done. And like Mr. Gladwell said, we believe there was an error on somebody's part, don't know who and where and why, that it was not extended through the 8 lots rather than the 6. So the Hoppers own both sides of the alley. All that I'm worried about today is that portion between those 2 alleys. And Public Works can address everything that's going on in Glendale, because as a realtor, there is a lot of issues that are potential to come up because of these alleys that are still open. Glendale was a thriving community back in the Great Depression, or prior to that, when the Turpentine, that's the reason why Railroad got its name. Railroad tracks ran from Glendale to Defuniak, and that's the right-of-way. That's what Railroad Avenue is. So that's why all of those roads are there. But if you look at an aerial, and I do have pictures, you'll see there are no open, it's going through people's houses. I personally have a lot that I know Mr. Elam, prior to me marrying his son, had closed when he worked for the county. It still shows it open on the property appraiser. Houston Street that comes by the church goes right on past his house and right beside my property. So there's a lot of things going on, but for today's purpose, all that I'm asking is for the abandonment to continue between those 2 lots, and my sellers would be greatly appreciative of anything we can do to expedite this.
Yes. Ms. Elam, I'll make a motion to approve this.
Second.
I want 2 things on the record, if we could. Ms. Elam, you're indicating that the fee title to Lot 526 and Lot 535 are vested in the same owner?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what I would indicate is that I would like the motion to be clear that we are abandoning the 20-foot platted alleyway that lies between lots 526 and 535. I will note, whether somebody screwed it up or not, I've gone through this far more than I intended to when Commissioner Gladwell asked me to look at it. Literally, those 2 lots are exempted from the abandonment. They abandoned all those lots over here, they abandoned some others, they just didn't abandon those specific two lots or the alley between those two lots. And the survey you have there, it shows, for anybody who wants to look this up, it says OR booking page 274974. If anybody goes to bother to look that up, that's the signature page to a mortgage that has absolutely nothing to do with it. The actual abandonment is 274974, November 13th, 2006. And it's clearly not in there, so if we just have it say those two lots, I think we're covered.
And the reason why that was even brought about was when Railroad Avenue was paved, the same owner, which happened to be my sister-in-law, owned the property at the end of Railroad Avenue that the county needed to do a cul-de-sac. So it was kind of a swap out of things, of working with the county on getting what y'all needed for a paved road, and it just happened to be an error, and nobody caught it until now. So
So it's just
we
that
appreciate
portion of the
this.
platted alley between 526 and 535.
Yes,
Was that house built, when was that house built?
2022.
Okay.
And they did go
Got a
to the
permit.
planning department, and they did get a permit, and they did show that they were gonna do it 40 feet from, and there's a concrete monument that they were going from, and the lot is 50 feet, and it happened to be an encroachment.
If they own both
Okay,
lots,
so-
it's gonna cover it.
So the county knew that where it was gonna be, they knew the size of it, they
I
didn't know
can't
that it was gonna.
answer, I can't answer for
We
people
had
that
all the
aren't here. I don't
information
know.
we could. Now, that's where somebody may have
Okay,
messed up.
okay.
But
It just looks like it was an error, and it's an easy fix on my part, but I'm, just coming for consideration. Now, the only thing that I do need to know is, do you need, as a county, a survey of just that area between those two lots?
we
Or can
do
move
we do
forward?
not. If the board approves this, now we will have to have a resolution approved at the next board meeting. We'll have to publish notice in a paper for 30 days. But the abandonment will happen the day we do the resolution. We just have to give notice after the resolution to perfect the abandonment of 30 days. But as long as we say that portion of of a platted alleyway lying between lots 526 and 535, as reflected in the package, I can have the resolution back at the next board meeting and we're done.
So we're looking at a possible timeline to tell my sellers of 6 weeks?
Second Tuesday of July.
Thank you very much. Okay, I appreciate it.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Thank you very much. And it's still a long time, but it's a lot less than 6 months.
Amen. And we'll address this to the Public Works on probably looking at this in the near future.
There's a lot
of
more
other
out there.
things, yes.
Thank you very much.
And I thank y'all for that, and that's all I have.
That's all you got? Commissioner Anderson?
Yes, I would make a motion to request to allocate District 5 rec plat fees in the amount not to exceed $150,000 for restroom facilities and site work to include utility tap and connections at the South Walton Dog Park.
Second.
And hopefully that will take care of any bathroom, the utilities, and if there's any overage, that they ran into problems, we didn't proceed. So, I appreciate it.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Anyone from the audience want to speak to
I
this?
just got one question.
Okay.
Why, this is in Commissioner Anderson's district, and it's his dog park and his rec plat fees. Why do we have to keep coming here? Is there a reason behind that?
The law.
It just is, it's the board. It's in his district, we give the commissioners the ability to make this recommendation, but because they are impact fees, the board is all that.
Okay, just wanted to ask.
Yeah, it's one
It's
of,
true with any impact fee.
it's one of those things where you say, why does the government do this? It's the law.
You're doing all the work in your district and it's your rec plat fees. Why do you need my okay?
It's an unbudgeted transfer of an impact fee into the general budget to use it, so you have to approve the impact fee transfer.
I'm learning.
Okay, so we've approved that, correct?
No, we haven't.
We've got the
No, we
motion
got
and a
a
second.
motion and a second.
And no one from the audience wanted to speak, right? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Okay, I have a few things that I wanted to talk about. One of them I actually talked about this morning, but I'll go ahead and just gloss over it again. Again, because of the Casa Magnolia debacle, I learned, I didn't know, that we have an opportunity And actually, it's the developer that has an opportunity to give us 5% of their land in lieu of paying their rec fees. Then I've found out that sometimes when they give us 5% of their land, it's, as we found out this morning, one of them was like, I don't know, 2/3 wetlands. That's really not much of a recreational area for our citizens, so it seems like, why are we doing this? And then I also had someone send me a photo of a piece of land that was given to the county in lieu of the rec fees, which had a huge electrical box on it and some other, poles and things like that, which again makes it kind of useless for the county to use it as a rec area. So what I'm hoping to propose is that when, I know they're in the process of rewriting the land development code, I understand this was removed from the land development code several years ago, but it's in the comp plan. So what I would like to see is that when they rewrite this, if they would change the whole process for, instead of the developer being the one to say, we're going to do this instead of that, we, the county, would be the one to say, we will accept this or not. And that way, we have control over it, not the developer, because they just seem to be giving us some pieces of property that just nobody, I mean, they can't even use it, so.
We'll be glad to, Madam Chair, and we'll do everything we can to avoid the input of Senate Bill 180 should it pass as well.
That was gonna be my question.
I'm not saying we can, but we're gonna do everything we can to try.
Okay.
Thank you.
But we
That's
need to
what I-
wait on it till.
Well, we can't do it, it's just discussion, we can't approve any
Right.
change to a comp. We couldn't do the comp plan in one meeting if we wanted to, so.
Right.
But we need to make sure that, we need to see what happens with 180 before.
I'm waiting with bated breath.
And everything that pretty much probably everything that I'm going to discuss, it falls under that same category. And the next item is, there's an exemption. I don't really know why we have this exemption, but according to our land use code, 1-1.13.13, the Certificate of Land Use Compliance, it says businesses mean all activities, trades, occupations, calling, vocation, or professions engaged in, conducted, advertised, carried on, or held out to the public to be a business for the purpose of gain or economic benefit. The following shall be exempted from that. And agriculture, that makes sense. I can understand that. Or civiculture, okay, I can understand that. I don't understand roadside and beach vending. So what this is allowing is it's allowing a residential beach area. If you have your personal home, it's allowing that personal home to run a commercial business on the beach. And it's not a commercial business, it's a residential area. And I don't know why we have that exemption in there, and I think that exemption needs to be removed. It was in there before, it was not in there, then it was in there, then it was not in there, and then it's in there. So I don't know why we're going back and forth like that, but I just think that's something that needs to be looked at. And
Are you talking about a club?
yes,
That's correct.
Yes, it is a club.
We've argued that in the past.
If the board would like us to tighten that up, I think the solution there is to readily identify what types of business activities are occurring in those residential areas. There's been a lot of discussion on that, but we can tighten that up if that's what the board
There is a
wants.
lot of discussion. It goes on to say, a business certificate, all businesses operating in Walton County shall obtain a certificate of land use compliance, which is a CLUC, from the Walton County Planning and Development Services Division. It goes on to say, it shall be a violation of the ordinance for any person or entity to operate a new business in Walton County without first obtaining a CLUC from Walton County Planning and Development. And then it goes on to say that it shall be the duty and responsibility of the Walton County Code Enforcement Department to enforce the provisions of this ordinance. Now, I know that a lot of us on the south end anyway, have a lot of businesses run in our residential neighborhoods that are not supposed to be running in our residential neighborhoods. We have people with golf cart businesses, we have people with laundry businesses, we have people with cleaning out short-term rental homes and leaving all the garbage in the front yard for, waste management to come pick up. We've got that going on all the time, and it gets worse and worse and worse every year. and I don't see anything happening to clean it up at all, nothing. And it states clearly right here on page 59 of our own land use code that it's the duty and responsibility of code enforcement to make sure that happens. And it's also, planning to get the cluck. So I just want us to enforce our own rules. And so that's how I feel about that one, and I'm hoping that we can move forward with that.
We can work on some solutions there.
Thank you, thank you. And I also have, and we've already talked about this today too, and I appreciate the fact that Stephen in planning has been doing this. They did this today. But I think that from this point forward, on all developments that come to this board, any fees that were due, we need to be shown what's due, and we need to see the receipt, or at least have the receipt number, so that we know that in fact that money has been paid, and then we can find another way to determine how much actually gets deposited. I think we need to have those checks and balances. And so I know that Stephen's already working on that. He's already done it for us today, and I really do appreciate that. And I think it's a good way to not have to do a forensic audit 10 years down the road. My next item is, I'll encompass all of them, because Highway 98 already is controlled by the Design Review Board. As far as when they're doing anything on Highway 98, you come to the Design Review Board. They have, lighting, they talk about the signage, they talk about paint, they talk about all these different things, landscaping, all sorts of things, the architecture of the building. And they make sure that we continually look beautiful, that all the buildings are done properly, that we don't have just things thrown out everywhere and we start looking like Coney Island or something. So the Design Review Board, that's their job and that's what they do. We have made a deviation recently. I'm not sure what the status of that deviation is, but we've got to be consistent. We can't just say one person, okay, we're going to let you do this, because what happens and has happened is the domino effect, where somebody else says, well, I want to do that too, so let me know if I'm going to be able to do that, because, so then we're going to have a mural here and a mural here and a mural here, and that's not what we want, and that's not what we're supposed to be. We're supposed to look like a very nice, upscale, beautiful place, and so I want to keep it that way. Saying that, I know that 2 years ago, in June, I believe it was 2 years ago, that Matt Carpenter, when he was here, we needed to put, for 30A and Scenic Highway 98, we needed to put that into our land development code, so that would fall under a Design Review Board as well. And it's in there, but I think it's in draft form. We've never gone anywhere with it. So we've got documentation on it, but we've never done anything with it. And I've asked several times about a Design Review Board for those areas, because what happens is you have a lot of people that are developers that come in here and they want to get their project done, and if we don't have a quorum, they can't do it, and they've got to come back to the next meeting. So I think we've done pretty well getting a good quorum for the Design Review Board for Highway 98, but we don't have one for 30A or for Scenic 98. And what's going to happen are things like are starting to happen now, that people want to put some kind of funky stuff in our areas, and we don't have the teeth to make sure that we're consistent and that we keep things looking the way they should. So what I propose is that maybe we can have someone, whether our land use attorney or someone, kind of look into that and put together another Design Review Board. And I know that Lee Moore is part of the Scenic America, and she is very, very active on 30A especially, and a lot of other areas. And she's very good. She's been on the Design Review Board for years and years and years. She's not on it anymore, but because of her duties with Scenic America, she would be a prime candidate, I think, to run this board or to put it together, whatever. But we've got to do something to make this happen. It's been 2 years and we haven't done anything. So if I can ask that somebody move forward and put together a board and let's start this happening, because otherwise, we're going to be behind the curveball, and Scenic 30A is not all that scenic in a lot of places. So I just think we need to follow our rules, read our ordinances, and make sure that we've got people to do the job.
Chair,
So
we'll have planning follow through.
that'd be great. Thank you very, very much. That's all I have. Any questions for me? Any questions? Okay, anybody from the audience want to speak on any topic? Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Jeff Free, Walton County resident.
Hello.
I had just two questions regarding kind of what we're talking about today. The importance of the LDC and the TRC and how they work together. And my question is, if someone wanted to change the LDC in the county, does any one person have that ability? Or is it something that if a developer came and said, well, you know, I don't necessarily want to do this thing that was the TRC approved in the LDC, it clearly states in the LDC that a development project, a DO, is supposed to be performed in such a way. Not one person can arbitrarily, from the government, at any level, go on site and say, well, no, you don't have to do that. No, you don't have to do that. Am I correct, or?
I think at
I
one
mean-
point in time, and I don't know if it still is, that the
I'm just
director
curious.
had an option. Was there a
You
change?
cannot change the land development code absent an ordinance. It has to come before the board on in a public process. Can they apply for variances through the zoning board of adjustment? Yes, that's a public hearing process. It's quasi judicial in nature. Are there director's determinations? Yes, but a director's determination cannot alter the plainly written intent and words of the land development code.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay.
That answers my question. That answers one of the more important questions, which actually answers my second question. So I appreciate that. There was an instance that came up that I was very foggy on, in the sense of one person was able to do that and affect the whole community. And you know, it's sad, but it happened. And I don't know if this is the forum right now to speak about that one instance, but that's what prompted the question.
What happened?
Well, it was from our previous director of planning, and it was regarding a minor DO that was granted to a RV park on Sweetwater Lane. And it clearly stated in the TRC and the Land Development Code, was real specific. And when we had an attorney that was representing the 15 homeowners on this project, we were assured that the requirements of the LDC and the TRC, they assured us it's probably not going to happen, because the requirements that y'all put on this development, they're not going to do this. So we pull back as the 15 homeowners. And then we find out that they got their CO. And half of the required setbacks, vegetation buffering, I could go on and on. It wasn't adhered to. And I find out in a meeting where a lot of the members of the board were at, and thank you very much for that meeting, I found out that, you know, one person clearly spoke to me and everybody in the room and said, I changed those because I can. And I said, well then, did you think about notifying the 15 homeowners on the street that it directly affected your decisions, your changes? Did you think about notifying them?
Right.
I didn't have to. I was flabbergasted. Honestly, I was, and then I started questioning, I looked around the room, in that room, and I asked everybody, I said, doesn't anybody think that this is kind of crazy, that one person can arbitrarily, dangerous situation, when one person can go out on a site and say, no, you don't have to put those bushes in, and those trees don't have to be that tall, and we don't care about your setbacks, and everything's good. I was astonished.
Apparently,
Who said that? Matt Carpenter. Quote, unquote. I did it because I can, and I'll back it in court. So my question moving forward was just, does one person? Because I thought that you would, if you're going to change it, just like I think Mr. Atkinson, you shared, you have to go back in front of the,
Right.
somebody has to go back.
No one has the unilateral authority to change the land development code or comprehensive plan
Right.
without it going before this board.
Anyway,
Okay, thank you, and sorry.
Oh, I'm just
for
saying,
your-
he's behind you, he was in the meeting, so he can,
Yes.
he can talk on that.
You too. I just wanted to provide a little context, not to take away from anything Mr. Free has said, but just simply that Chapter 5 allows for the planning director to vary in some respects from the landscape requirements of the code, which includes the buffering aspects and the walls and other things like that, screening. And I believe that what Mac did at the time and what was relayed to Mr. Free was just that. He varied from some of those requirements in what was a circumstance that he and the previous administrator as well agreed to in conjunction with the property owner at that time. So,
Well, correct me
Thank
if
you.
I'm wrong, but he did say that there was a county easement that was in discussion also, and I hope I quote this right, but he said that he really didn't have to make them build a 10-foot fence or the landscaping, am I correct? But he said he made them do that.
So, yes, there is some, I think he would make the argument that he didn't need to require the buffering and landscaping against that side. For that reason, there was a 15 or 15-foot easement between the subject property and the abutting neighbor. The neighbor in question constructed, I believe, a 10-foot privacy fence against that side of the property, which I believe played into the buffering relief that was allotted to the park owner.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, I appreciate that. Thank you. Anyone else?
I'd just like to read a statement from me. My name is Lisa Keating, I'm also from Walton County residents.
I'm sorry, your last name?
Lisa Keating, Keating.
Okay.
In January, we had a pre-planning meeting with a senior planner from Walton County to discuss a proposed housing project. During that meeting, another planner was brought in, and together we reviewed the concept in detail. We were told that they needed time to confirm whether a project would be allowed under current regulation. About a week later, we received a written confirmation from the senior planner that our project had been approved. The email even instructed other departments to assist us in moving forward with the permitting process. With that written approval in hand, we then purchased the property, hired an architect to begin clearing the lot to prepare for construction. Now, 5 months later, we've been blindsided. This week, we were told that our project is being denied, despite having done everything in accordance with the county's guidance, and despite the fact that the LDC supports our plan. To make matters worse, this project is not for us, it's for my 86-year-old mother. She's the widow of a retired Army chaplain who recently was scammed out of her entire life savings by online fraudsters. With her financial security destroyed, we made plans to move her close to us. After receiving official approval from the county, she used the last of her money to purchase the lot next door. The plan was to build a duplex on her property, a single family with an attached dwelling per LDC. The plan was to build that on her property so she could live in one unit and rent the other side out to cover her expenses. Now, after being told yes, and after spending everything she had left, the county is telling us no. She was victimized once by cruel strangers, and now after all the rules, and now after following all the rules and acting in good faith, she's being victimized again, however, this time by our local government. We've reached out to Dan Curry's office, so far have not received a response. The level of miscommunication and disorganization within Walton County that we've experienced is deeply troubling. We are left with financial harm, emotional distress, and a growing sense that our local government cannot be trusted to uphold its own decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen, do you have any knowledge of that?
Hang on one second. She did notify my office, but I also notified legal since the email stated that they were in, I guess they threatened
We'll
with
be hearing
suit.
from their attorney with
So I
forthcoming
passed-
litigation. So I did advise Commissioner Curry, as I've advised every one of the commissioners, that when there is the reference that an attorney's bringing litigation, challenge, or suit to the county, that it is not in your interest or the county's interest to individually meet with citizens in that regard. I encourage all of you to meet with citizens to avoid potential threats of litigation, but once that happens, my advice is unflinching in that regard. It does not help the county for you to have that meeting. I do understand planning has a meeting set up, though. Is that correct?
That's
To
what
try to
I've
address
seen.
these issues? So I would ask, given what I know, hopefully there's not litigation forthcoming. Stephen, get with me. Let's make sure that if there is an attorney involved on their side, that somebody from legal is involved as well. But let's don't have any further discussion of this. She's read her comments in. If there's a legal threat, we don't need to take up any more of it today if we can help it.
All right,
Miss-
thank you,
Madam
Stephen.
Chair,
Yes.
and I agree with everything Clay and Commissioner Curry said, except I would add, I get these all the time too, probably way more than you do. And the way we respond is we cannot, on the advice of our attorney, we cannot respond to this.
Right.
Because there's a threat of legal proceedings. And I try to do that with everyone that comes up. Can't always do it, but
Right.
it's, at least they know we're aware of the problem.
That's right.
Right. Thank you for
Appreciate
that.
that. Thank you.
Thank you.
He's already spoken.
Sir, you've already, you've,
There was never a
I
threat.
don't get all
There
of
was
it.
never a threat
Okay.
for.
Yeah, he's already
just
spoken. We can't.
In the case of a land use attorney, that's what we thought we needed in order to
Okay.
cure this problem. So there was never a threat of suit. It's just,
okay, they're going to get
okay.
with you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Who else? Tabitha?
Tabitha Howard. Everything's just kind of going everywhere. Just because we were talking about, we've got so many engineers here in Walton County that work for the county and everything, and I've been having an issue for quite some time still, and this relates back to code and everything, but how do I go about getting a complaint for my case? I guess I'm just going to read. I've attached the email thread you requested regarding the complaint you initiated on May the 9th, 2025. I do not have a case number to provide at this time, but I will update you as soon as I receive any further information. And here's my email thread that Kim Jones, she sent me. And in that, I see that Matthew Richards, Frankie White, Clay, Tony, Michael, all the Michaels and everyone, was sent information about my code complaint, but here I don't see where it was sent to an engineer. Please review the attached documents and render any recommendations on how or whether to proceed. But just to bring it all down, the scope of this complaint merits a professional response, either by the county's professional engineers or by an outside state agency that might have some regulatory authority. I would just like a case number, please, for my complaint for Sandestin. And I would like to know when legal sent it to the engineers, what county engineers are even looking at it. I see it's been sent to county attorneys. I see everybody in code's been copied, but I don't see an engineer. And I'd just like to know what engineer and when this would be handled. And also another thing, because we were talking about with the engineers, or like trying to do an audit, but we paid for that movie. We paid like $400,000 and didn't even bat an eye. And then also with this land swap and stuff, I'm trying to figure out that Indian land that we were willing to pay $6.5 million, like boom, in one meeting. That didn't happen, thank goodness, because remember the Indian land that was for
Yeah.
sale in Sandestin for $6.5 million that had the cell tower that's illegally on it.
Right, we were not buying that.
Well, it was suggested that we do purchase it for $6.5 million. That way we can control traffic a little bit better on Mac Bayou to keep a developer from buying it. But honestly, you can't build on it anyhow. Yeah, that was an agenda item. Remember Dana came up
Yeah,
here?
I remember it, but we didn't offer to buy it.
No, but we were going to, possibly for $6.45 million because that was a deal.
They were selling it for that, but we were not buying it.
Yeah, but Danny Glidewell,
Okay, go ahead,
he
go
approached he was wanting the county to buy it.
Whoa.
I'm sorry, yeah, because remember everyone was
No,
contacting
no.
you. They didn't contact Donna, even though it was in her district, but.
But they live in my district, and
Right.
they asked me to put that on the agenda. I put that on the
Okay.
agenda, but nobody ever even made a motion to buy it. Nobody said anything about buying it. And just because
Those meetings
something's
were a little
on,
hairy, weren't they?
no, just, do what?
They were a little hairy, like they were kind of crazy, because, you
No,
know.
they weren't crazy. They
Well, the
just
Indian
want to sell
chief
their
was here,
property.
and
He's not an Indian chief, and he's in jail right now for
I
bank
don't
robbery.
know.
But-
As I said, it was a little crazy.
But we put things on the agenda all the time that are just for discussion.
Yes, sir.
Or just to talk about. That doesn't mean we're gonna do anything. And we never even came close to buying that property.
Well, after
Nor
Donna almost
will-
lost
I mean,
$700,000.
You're
I
talking
think
about
that,
Casa Magnolia.
yeah, I think that we
That's-
do need an
That's a
audit.
planning problem. The movie is a TDC marketing project. I mean, you're just going all over the place.
We'll get her a
Well,
case
'cause every-
number on the code.
every
If there-
meeting
we'll
goes
get her
all over the
internal case
place.
number.
Tabitha, we will get you a case number for code, and we will get that for you by the end of this week or
Yeah,
sooner.
yes, please, and what
Okay?
engineer's looking at it.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Mr. Bagby?
Only back up because I may not be here when the group brings the thing back, Jim Bagby, B-A-G-B-Y. And I wish the Sandestin Investment folks, family, team had stayed here because I wanted to make sure that they understood, because they think people are coming in. So I just, again, referring to the two tournaments, the one in September and the Las Vegas one, the attendance at the Napa tournament in September, total for 4 days, 16,000 people. 15,000 people, less than 4,000 per day. Probably half of those live in Napa or live in Hillsburg or someplace in the valley there. And that is a place that is an hour away from Oakland and San Francisco in the Bay Area. So we don't have that type of thing here. The Las Vegas tournament wouldn't even publish their attendance, okay? The one that was held in October. They wouldn't even publish their, and I don't know, but I'll figure out, I'll go read the Las Vegas papers to see what their attendance was. The other thing, the other point that I would mention is, again, that I mentioned before, SEC football season. So if we get the Las Vegas time slot, the games going on that weekend, Tennessee, Alabama, Ole Miss, Georgia, SMU, Clemson, which is a replay of the ACC championship game, Louisville, Miami, and of course my favorite, Army and Tulane, down in Tulane. If we get the September weekend from Napa, that's the Georgia, Tennessee game, the Florida, LSU game, the A&M, Notre Dame, and the Alabama, Wisconsin game. You're not, and I feel for the servers and the stuff, and yes, we have a lot of fall breaks now, and that makes the fall easier, and I want them to be helped, but spending $4-6 million for a golf tournament that's going to bring 4,000 people a day, half of probably aren't, coming from anywhere, they already live here, isn't going to increase their intake any. And again, I wish Sandestin had stayed, but, they all had to get back to work.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, just for the record, Las Vegas, if I'm not mistaken, had the tournament for 40 years, so they probably dwindled down after 40 years. We haven't had one at all, not to this
Well, we've
degree.
had a couple of tournaments.
Not to this degree. The corn thing you're talking about are the beginners, those are the beginners, but we're talking about bringing in
And
other
that's,
people.
thank you, Commissioner, for bringing that up. That's my exact point. Telling you the money rankings of all the people, these are 1 year away, these are like the sophomores. So Korn Ferry was like the freshmen, these are like the sophomores. You're not gonna get, and the highest ranked winner, okay, was 19th place of all those 4 tournaments. His name, J.T. Poston. Now, if anybody can tell me what college J.T. Poston went to or where he played before, I'll give you a nickel. But I know nobody knows that name, and that's my point. You're not going to have the names here that will draw people to come here and watch that.
You don't know if you don't try it.
That's
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Yes. You work here. You can't come up here.
I'll be brief. Jeff Goldberg, EM Director for the Record. I just wanted to make an announcement that every year during hurricane season, we do hurricane preparedness town hall meetings. We have one down here on Thursday at 6 p.m. So if you are able to come, great. Open to the public, obviously. And if you have Facebook and whatnot, if you could share our event, we'd much appreciate it. Last year, we had a fantastic turnout. Commissioner Curry stopped by for a bit, or actually for the entire time. And we had about, what, 30 people in there, I think? So we want to try and do better this year, so I figured I'd take a moment and throw that out there. Any questions?
No, I think that's great. I'm glad that you brought that up, and I hope we do get a lot of people here. So thank you. Thank you very much.
All right.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name's Linda Frakes, F-R-A-K-E-S, and I live in Donna John's district, and met with her about this last week. Nobody's dying over this issue, but I am one of the poor souls that lives in South Walton on the old beach road. Which means I'm out today, which is an unusual thing. I'm usually home at this time of the year because you can't go anywhere. But I met with Ms. Johns last week because my understanding was that there was a ghost chair ruling in the county and had not seen that implemented in any way and at the Pompano Joe's Regional Beach Access, which is where I live very close to. At any given morning, at least 30% of that beach is taken up by beach chairs that are completely empty and remain that way for a pretty large percentage of the day. And I've also been trying to educate myself on the erosion control line, and I shared a photograph, an aerial photograph of the erosion control line. And in that picture, in that satellite picture, all of the beach chairs were forward of the erosion control line, which, again, we have rules apparently, we're just not following them. So I don't know, other than speaking out against it, I know that there are lifeguards that feel hopeless about that and helpless, and a lot of us that live down there, we endure a lot in order to bring all the revenue into the county that comes every year at this time of the year, but it just doesn't seem right that we're not following those rules, and the people that we rent to can't go to the beach and sit in front of the beach with their children. They have to sit behind beach chairs that are set up by vendors when there's nobody in the chairs, so.
I had a conversation with Code about that.
Okay, that's what I was gonna say. Tony, would you raise your hand? Would you get with him?
Sure,
when we
I'd be happy
adjourn?
to.
He's our code director.
Okay. I'd
And
be
we
happy to.
discussed it, so he's familiar with that.
Excellent, thank
Okay.
you, I appreciate your time.
Thank you, thank you. Someone else had their hand up. Yes, yes, ma'am.
Barbara Breerwood, B-R-E-E-R-W-O-O-D. I'm here to comment on the land use hearing this morning. There were 21 people that had come for that meeting for one particular agenda. And that agenda is going to be heard at the July 24th meeting. And I was there early, but then when I saw where the agenda was, going to be continued to the July 24th meeting, I left. I was really angry that all those people, and that's more than is here today,
Right.
right now, they stopped their personal lives to go to that meeting, and it's continued. And I know you probably don't have any way to stop this continuance, but if you could, would you please do it? Because it disrupts many people's lives.
I understand that, and I really hate that that happened. Since we were short one commissioner, they had an opportunity to make a determination whether they wanted to go forward with it or not. They chose not to go forward with it.
Yeah.
So I realized that, and I hated that because I know a lot of people that were in that group. I had no idea as many of you were there as were there,
Yeah.
because when you left, you emptied the room. But and I do apologize for that, but it will be heard on the 24th. We do not like to continue, but it's tough for them because there's 4 of us, so it makes it a little different. And so it's kind of stuck between a rock and a hard spot.
but
And I also want to thank all of you for making Walton County a better place. I really appreciate your efforts.
thank you so very
I
much.
really
We
do
appreciate
appreciate
that.
We don't
Thank
hear
you.
that enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can you say it one more time, please?
Can you record it?
Please don't make me talk anymore. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else? No? Seeing none, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.